Good evening, Sim Racing fans, and welcome to the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. Happy to be with you from the World Center of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway. Topside with you tonight on RaceSpotTV and iRacingLive. Myself, Evan Pasoko, happy to be with Cam Walsh and Andy Kessler. Hugo Louise downstairs, going to be pushing the buttons and bringing us to you this evening, Cam. This thing has been going underway now for 2 days, but there are a lot of big names specifically tonight in the top split of this iRacing Daytona 500. It is going to be an exciting race as it has been in series past, and I know that we're happy to be a part of it for this 2017 installment. It's going to be a long night at Daytona, to say the least. 200 laps and 500 miles before somebody's going to be able to call themselves the winner of one of the biggest official oval races on the year.
Absolutely, and hello everybody, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us. Thanks for making us part of your day. And yeah, Evan, I mean, it's Daytona. I mean, it's the biggest, as far as I'm concerned, it's the biggest plate race that you have. Sorry, Talladega, but I love the atmosphere. I love how it goes. Everybody's is roaring and ripping and ready to rock and roll. Qualifying very much underway, and just seeing everyone out here, it is always a good thing. Of course, I love the Peak Series, but here you've got the entire gambit of every single driver that is capable of running, of course, in this series here to strut their stuff, and it is always a good show.
I don't think anybody really knows somebody who is not in a Daytona 500 at some point this week. This is the top split of this Friday evening Daytona 500. I think that just before we went on, there's somewhere about 650 drivers on the iRacing service at the moment participating in their own Daytona 500, and as well, I believe that's at least 18 races, Andy, we counted before we jumped into this one. But it is going to be an exciting race. A lot of the names that you're going to see on track, obviously, by this would be in the top split, going to be names that are very recognizable. But even to the point that Cam just noted there, when we come next Tuesday, we'll be right back here for the season opener of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing. That one not even going to be anywhere near as long as this race is. So it's a pretty big deal, and it's going to be a completely, I think, different kind of race it's going to take to get the job done.
Oh, it absolutely is. A lot shorter, Evan. Pit stops will mean a lot more. But you're going to get a feel for this tonight. Like you said, a lot of big names in here. A lot of guys you're going to see next Tuesday night here in this race tonight. Why not? They're trying to tune those setups, get them ready for what they're going to have next week for the season opener.
The qualifying session, 5 minutes. The two best laps you can get, best one going to count for the qualifying time, has rounded up. And with that, we are set to go trackside. Let's take a look at the starting grid for the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. Chris Shearbird behind the wheel of the number 19. Going to snag pole position tonight. His 46.767. Going to allow him to bring us to the green flag tonight. He'll be joined on the front row by Garrett Lowe. Zach Novak, Nicholas Mortz going to start back on row 2 in third and fourth position tonight. Just behind them, defending NASCAR iRacing Pro Series champion Ryan Luza is fifth.
And starting in sixth position, of course, Chad J. Lawton. He's going to be starting, of course, in sixth outside row. David Rattler starting the next row in seventh position. Jake Nichols, his outside. Adam Benefield in the ninth position. And Christian Chalmier in 10th position.
That's going to give the 31 of Malik Ray a starting position of 11. 12th tonight goes to the 14 of Alex Bergeron. Chris Overland in the 24 will start 13th. 14th goes to Tyler Laughlin. And Brian Blackford in the 15 will roll off 15th.
Again, that 15's Dancy partner back on that row. Alongside him in 16th, going to be Taylor Hurst. John Gorlinski will start tonight in 17th position with Jimmy Mullis at 18th, looking to back at row number 10. 19th for Justin Bolton and 20th for Ryan Doucette.
Jacob Herberts is starting 21st. Dylan C. Jones in 22nd position. Brandon Pipgrass in 23rd. Aaron Likens in 24th position. And Cody Bias in 25th.
26th tonight on the grid, the number 10 of David Washington. 27th goes to Parker Steele. Braden Boulos will start 28th. 29th, the last car to take a qualifying time here tonight will be Dylan Duvall. And Logan Clampett in the number 1 car. He'll start 30th.
Long way to go. A couple of drivers decide not to take times in qualifying. 31st on through 37th to round out the grid tonight. All on those provisionals. Bruno Barbugli going to start in 31st. Blake Reynolds in 32nd. Ryan Loback in 33rd. Robbie Vrabel Jr. 34th with Colton Davis in 35th. James Curl in 36th. And shotgun on the field at number 37. Patrick Mallet will start in the number 37 spot. Let's talk about this Daytona International Speedway, Cam. 2.5 miles in length, and therefore it is going to take tonight's distance of 200 laps to get 500 miles out of the way. Again, there are some of these big official oval races on the calendar here and there as the year goes on, but everybody's excited to get these official iRacing series kicked off for 2017, and I will agree with your previous statement. This is probably the biggest one of them.
And the Mustang pace lights are out, so we'll probably take the green this time by. Yes, they will, of course. But just looking at Daytona, I mean, of course, we just had the 24 hours here, not less than a month ago, and we're already here with the stock cars. I love how you just get everything here at Daytona. I have to say, I may be a boy from Syracuse in New York, but those guys in Daytona Beach, Florida, they are so lucky to have this amount of motorsport down south there.
We're happy that you're with us tonight on RaceSpotTV at iRacingLive. Pole sitter up in the number 1 spot. Chris Shearburn takes the American Enduro green flag. We are underway for the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. Everybody through as they get him up to the gears and off to quarter number 1 for the first time. Inside with the advantage up to 175 miles an hour already. Trying to get these guys underway.
Like a clean start so far. That outside line is falling back just slightly, which is normal here on the first lap. Everyone's just sorting themselves out, getting themselves ready. This is, of course, a very, very long race. I mean, just as you're saying, 200 laps, 2.5 miles a lap. I mean, this is going to be a very long race, and you're letting everybody sort of sort themselves out. We saw in the race on Tuesday, the Ray Alfala's event there, we saw that there was quite a bit of carnage. I think, 7 laps in, they barely made it. I think everyone is going to take a note from that, and I think we're going to see a fairly calm start here as that outside line, although it's falling back a little bit more than I thought it would.
Well, you have to expect, again, that these guys are going to take it easy. Looking at about, 50-second laps once these guys get up to speed. Again, the best times in qualifying were down towards the 46s. And so if we don't see a single caution, that this race is going to be at least 2 hours and 45 minutes just on those 50-second lap times alone. So the outside, you don't want to lose spots by any means as we start to see the inside pull up by maybe 5-6 car lengths to the inside of the racetrack. Lap number 2 going to come to a close this time, but is still that number 19 of Shearburn in control. But it is a long night. If you don't want to get up on somebody's bumper and really force the issue on the first green flag tonight, I don't really think anybody's going to be overly critical on you on that. This race may get to a point where we get single file, and they just try to ride and knock out multiple stints in that very calm environment. You see that single file advantage to the drivers on the inside of the racetrack, now 9 cars strong.
Yeah, you're talking all about survival in this race with the 200 laps of the scheduled distance, Evan. And the problem with that is you get right on that guy's bumper, you start pushing, you start trying to make those moves early. You end up overheating these cars too as well, and it's something you don't want to have, especially up towards the front of the field here, is have a car blow up, ends up getting themselves in some trouble with the rest of the field right there on their back bumpers as well too. So that's why you're seeing this right now. Everyone just calm right now, trying to log some laps, just trying to get a feel for the car, get set up, try to maybe find their teammates, find partners, try to figure out those guys that they can work with as they move on throughout this race. And that's when the intensity ramps up once we get past that halfway point.
Something that ties in with the discussion of engine temps and obviously how these guys have to attack this race. We should let you know what the weather is. You see the sun setting here at the Daytona International Speedway. We have realistic weather conditions, so it's 81 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. Down trackside, though, the track is 102 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. There are some winds out of the southeast. Looks like 6 to 7 miles an hour fluctuating to this point. It is relatively humid with 61% relative humidity to this point in the race. So it is by no means a cool afternoon of racing here at the Daytona International Speedway, so you don't want to be up on each other all the way around. Some guys, though, starting to form up an outside lane of the racetrack at lap number 5. That number 29 of Adam Benefield, top side, and, well, he had the push from the 24 to Chris Overland, but the 2, Ryan Luza, saw that line coming. He went bottom to top side, and now he leads as they challenge for the race lead.
He got a pretty hefty bump on the back of that Ford Fusion 2 from Adam Benefield. I don't think Benefield really liked having all of that momentum. They could have certainly gone all the way through. I think perhaps next lap or the lap after this one, that outside line should have enough momentum to really go by that inside line of Chris Shearburn, of course, who's led this whole way through. But that outside line, actually, it seems to be faltering a little bit. You know what? That's not a bad thing. I don't mind seeing that right now. When people start getting a little too racy, especially when you're only on lap 6, it starts concerning me. I do have to say that inside line staying very, very close to that double yellow line down there. And, Andy, I have to say, it's not that too surprising. A lot of people like to go too wide there.
No, it's definitely not surprising at all either, too. I mean, this is some of the safest places to be is up towards the front of the field. You will see wrecks at Daytona up towards the front of the field, but I think a lot of these guys just not wanting to ride in that single file line. You end up getting checked up. A lot of times you end up losing the draft, too, as a result. And the packs, you'll see little packs of 10 cars here or 4 here, and I think a lot of these guys just want to stay as grouped up as possible up towards the front of the field. That's why that second lane really making a run for it now. As you see that 5, Zach Novak getting a pretty decent run there at a turn number 2 down his back straightaway now. Still not enough, though. Not enough help on that top side. Just 3 cars strong. It's not going to get it done, at least to take over the race lead.
They had a lot of momentum, and it really started when they were coming from multiple car lengths back. But then we saw Luza go out from 3rd in line on the inside. Then the 5 machine of Zach Novak went up from 2nd line on the outside. And that's kind of how this works out. If you're that 29 machine right now of Adam Benefield, who was really the first guy to make it to the top side, very rarely, especially if you're outside of the top 5, when you start making that turn, are you going to be the guy that actually gets nose-to-nose with the race leader? It's those guys 2nd, 3rd, 4th in line on the inside of the racetrack who just sit there, play it conservatively, then decide to go to the outside of the racetrack and kind of try to steal your thunder away. But now the 5, you're in a good position as we head down the Daytona Superstretch, this time off to quarter number 3, right nose-to-nose with Chris Shearburn, but I think that it's going to be very difficult for him to get a push from that to Aluza to be able to get around the 19 when they're starting side by side. Interestingly enough, sometimes it's better to start from a couple of car lengths back. You need to use that momentum to get going. Keep a half eye, though, on that 24 of Chris Overland. Just trying to keep the nose out, I think, to get some air to it. But if somebody gets a little bit interested with him and gets a little brave, they might try to go up to a 3rd lane. Daytona, relatively much thinner than the Talladega Superspeedway. It is plausible. I would not recommend it, though, on lap 9 of 200.
And Evan, you've got Logan Clampett very slow on the outside. Here comes the field. They've actually caught him at the correct moment, as it would be. It looks like he's carrying damage on that front end. Obviously, something happened at the start that I must have missed. But Logan, he's picked up that damage. That is not the way he wants to start his season, especially here at the Daytona 500 here on iRacing. But one of our pro drivers, I'm sure he'll be ripping and roaring, ready to go on Tuesday, of course. But obviously not the way you want to start when you're not even 10 laps in and already a lap down.
Yeah, it definitely makes for a long night when you have damage this early and this long of a race. So for him right now, just basically trying to hang on to it and hopefully pick up the draft here, not go down more than 1 lap down here. So if we do get that caution, he could have the opportunity to get that lucky dog, get back on the lead lap, hopefully get that damage fixed and get back into this race before it's all said and done. The 5, though, Zach Novak did a great job getting around Chris Shearburn. Of course, he had the help of Ryan Luza getting that job done. Luza, though, has since now, as they exit turn number 4, fallen back all the way about to that 4th in line there. He's running side by side right now with Malik Ray.
Just wanted to note that Logan Clampett, the damage that he has on that car that caused him to drop back, he just got up into the fence in 3, and it looked like might have been an issue on his end of things with the signal as that car just drifted up the hill. He is the number 1 car tonight. I do want to note that because Ryan Luza, as we see him up front inside of the top 5, is behind the wheel of the 2 tonight. As we noted earlier, there's over 18 splits of Daytona 500 action going on right now on the iRacing service, and these guys, gridded up and given those numbers based on that iRating. And I think it's interesting that Ryan Luza when we covered the Pro Series over the off break here on iRacing Live, was always in that number 1 car. Well, Logan Clampett holds that number tonight, but he is going to need some assistance if he's going to be able to get his way back up. Other than Clampett, though, the other 36 drivers are still on the lead lap, and they're relatively tightly packed together, only 4 seconds between race leader Zach Novak and 36th place runner James Curl. So while some of those guys are, I think, what could be considered a safe distance, 3-4 seconds back, not right in the pack, nobody has really fallen off. We haven't seen a group of 5 or 6 cars drop back and start to lose speed. So more than that, everybody, I think, is inside of this main draft up front, keeping up 206 miles an hour that time off to the corner for the guys on the front row.
And Zach Novak looking fairly steady. He ended up going by Chris Shearburn. You know what? I think Shearburn's perfectly A-okay with that. I think there is a lot of patience looking like going on here. But what I'm starting to notice is off the exit of 2 and off the exit into 1 is Chris Overland. He's been pushing his way through this outside line, or at least he's been trying to lap after lap. He might just be sticking his nose up there just to cool off that Ford Fusion's engine. But it looks like as he goes once again to the outside that it's starting to get botched up a little bit there. There is one single line starting from Nicholas Morse back, but then you've got the 2 lines up front. And they are starting to get a little merged, I think is the appropriate term. And Andy, when that starts happening, I start getting a little worried. But of course, these guys really, quite frankly, used to it.
Yeah, you see a little 3 wide action right now with Chris Overland still on that high side. He'll drop down now right behind the 13 of Jimmy Mullis. Mullis finally decided, you know what, you're going to stay up there. I'm going to go around you. He does just that. He's in the 3rd spot there in that top lane. Overland still on the outside there. And like you said, I think this is just a case of him trying to put some air to that engine. Doesn't want to fall out of this thing too early here. And what it did was it cost him a spot. It cost him another one there, as you see the 15 of Brian Blackford teammate jump up in front of him right there. And that's going to lose him one more spot here. Up front, though, Ryan Lewis is starting to make a little bit of a run there. He's got David Rattler right there in his back bumper and giving him a push. And looks like this time at the line, you're going to give that lead right over to Michael Luza.
He's got the nose at the start-finish line, and he will at least get the lap led. Lose that time by, thinks about going low, and he will sneak down and do it just in front of the nose to Zach Novak. What I was getting ready to say was, he got the lap led, but I didn't think he was going to be able to get clear. A great job of that 29 of Adam Benefield by continuing to push through the tri-oval off to that short shoot down to corner number 1. Gave that 2 just a little bit of extra oomph that he needed to be able to get by him. The cars do get very loose when they go through the tri-oval, and a lot of guys will prefer to give a little bit more distance there and not be as aggressive, but it works out for the 2, and not necessarily an entirely selfless move on behalf of Adam Benefield. He's not simply sacrificing himself to help out the 2 cam, because now that the 2's out of the way, it's his opportunity to lead the outside line. That's good news for him, because obviously he wants to try to battle and get to the top spot, but also because he was tucked up on that 2, now he's got clean air topside to cool down a bit.
And I mean that he is going to enjoy, though you got to start looking at cars like the number 13 of Jimmy Mules and Chris Shearburn, Brian Blackford as well. These guys have been tucked up under the rears lap after lap now. They're probably going to have to start screwing out and getting some air to their engines. The last thing you want to do is pop an engine here. Mostly single file, except for this clump of cars going all the way back to P9, position 9. As they go through the tri-oval once again. There is going to be another lapped car fairly soon of James Curl. He seems to have lost the draft at some point. He's running through the tri-oval right now, so it's going to be at least a little while before our leader Ryan Michaeluza gets to him. But we're starting to get this trend. We're losing maybe one car a lap. Loses this one car every maybe 3 or 4 laps, I guess I should say. Ends up losing this draft, and that's going to start making it interesting if this field catches this lap car on a corner, because that could, well, especially with Chris Overland constantly going on the outside, it could definitely cause problems.
Yeah, that's one thing with this draft package, though, too, with these Cup cars at Daytona, at Talladega right now with iRacing, is that that car that is at the tail end of the pack does have a hard time keeping up with the draft. You really need that help from the guy just in front of you, really to drag the brake through the corner and on these straightaways to help you maintain it. You can look back a little bit further, and you can see actually looks like the 38 maybe of 28 maybe. He's doing a great, excuse me, it's the 18 car right now, way into the back there. And you can see he lost this draft from the pack, and he's starting to fall back to that second group that's lined up single file there in turns 3 and 4.
I am surprised to see this 3 wide that has been somewhat sustained inside of the top 10. It hasn't been, 3-4 drivers up on that outermost lane. I think it's really only been Chris Overland in that 24. Thought in the opening maybe 10 laps of this race that he was stepping out to that third lane just to get some air to the nose of that car, but it has seemed the last couple of times he has willingly left that middle lane open. That time, the 31 machine of Elite Ray was able to go up the inside of him and slot into the back bumper of Jimmy Mullis, getting himself what should be about a 9th place running spot by the time they come back. And Chris Overland drops back a little bit. Again, we mentioned that these guys don't want to force the issue now. We're going to be 19 laps complete this time around. But at the same time, you don't want to not do anything with a 40-car pack at this point and then try to make a move late in the race, really not know what to do. Now is the time where if you don't have a lot of buddies in this race and you might not be all too comfortable with the draft, experiment a little bit. See what you can do. See who is willing to work with you, as Zach Novak going to go back to the race lead, back now in front of the 2.
Yeah, he ended up sliding off the exit of 4, just up to that top lane, right off the nose of Brian Blackford. Got a little bit of a push, and actually they're going to go around now. They're going to start doing a little bit of a little bit of a dangerous circle here, because now they're playing a bit of a dangerous game where every single straight, well, he didn't get it that time. I think he really just wanted to get on by and then dip down to the inside. That's what Zach Novak did in his Toyota Camry. But you start playing that game where you try to leapfrog each other every single other corner, and I just don't see that lasting very well. There's a bit of a pocket on the inside line, though, and I think that's going to be fairly interesting, because now we're starting to see here, however, I think that 2-wide action is starting to really close up this field, because now going all the way back to nearly 20th position, you've got 2-wide action once again. I almost thought that we were going to have 2 full separate packs. But for whatever reason, they've managed to close right on back in. I still see a couple of people peeking their noses out to get some air. But, Andy, this group just does not seem to be going away, and it actually seems to be growing.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. You got to look back even a little further to the 4 car of Justin Bolton, who basically was leading the second group. They were single file as they went around the 18 a few laps ago, and now you can see them closing in on this front pack as well, too. So this front pack, well, right now it's only about 23 cars deep. But it's about to be a whole lot more here as they start to work their way now into turns 1 and 2. Some 3-wide action up front again as the Overland of that 24 machine slips back another spot. It's the 16 of Jake Nichols, able to get around him that lap there through the corner. So not sure if there's a game he's trying to play or what, but he's opened up that middle lane once again, and comes to 28 now. Nicholas Morse looking for that spot in turn 3.
And it's the 24 going backwards on that third lane once again. Again, Overland, not all that long ago, was in front of that 31 of Malik Ray, who is now basically the second car in line on the top side of the racetrack. So there are some guys who are trying to work their way through the field, and they're doing it with some relative success. I don't think that anybody's really been pushing it too much to this point. We want to give a shout out to that number 13 of Jimmy Mullis. I know that for somebody who started 18th, we've been talking about him a fair bit so far. It's close, he's already plus 14 with just about a little bit over 20 laps completed in this race. So if you want to go forwards, you can. There are a couple of guys, though, that are being really conservative and maybe dropping back a little bit too much than what they would have liked. Garrett Lowe, who started this race in second, he's back in 18th. And Chad Lawton, who started P6, is back in 19th. So those are some of the guys on the negative end. Of course, if there's guys moving forward, there has to be guys moving backwards.
Absolutely, and of course, I think some of the biggest losers right now, I think Logan Clampett, he ended up calling it a day, which he did. So he's officially out of the race from whatever issue he had that put him into the wall. So, of course, Logan, one of our pro drivers, so not the day he wanted, but you know what, there's many more fights to be had. And just looking back now to the front of the back of the front, you're looking perhaps now back down to, once again, still about 20th position right now, actually. About 15th position, Brandon Pipgriss and Taylor Hurst. These two guys are kind of covering the rear, and Chris Overland, he's been falling back lap after lap. I'm almost wondering if perhaps he's starting to get to the point where, as they go 3 wide going through the tri-oval to pass the start-finish line, if he's not starting to get a little wary of that outside line, he's going to try to sneak his way to the inside line or something, as Teeth Laughlin He goes on the outside. We're starting to see some 3-wide action back there, but that is just going to kill their momentum, and that's going to drag them back as we still got a good 2-line pack here. And Andy, it's like every other lap, it's the outside lane, it's the inside lane, it's the outside lane.
Yeah, absolutely. You see that up front, too, as well. Another advantage right there for that number 2 machine. Aluza able to get out ahead with the help from Malik Ray. He gets back out in front of that 5 machine now, takes over the race lead. Now Malik Ray will try to see if he can get the help from 13 to 16. They're all lined up. They got a group coming up behind him, too. That 21 machine, been watching him since the beginning of this race, and he's been using that outside lane to his advantage now, and starting 17th. He's already up inside the top 10 now, so Gorlinski doing a great job in that 21 machine. He finds himself now up near the front of the field, exactly where he wants to be here and for the duration of this one.
Really impressed, though, now with 25 laps complete, just how composed everybody has been so far to this point. Still side by side, 6 rows deep of that action up near the front of the field, inside with a little bit of an advantage. 2 cars pulling back away. Luza is one of the guys who's playing hopscotch with P1 tonight. He's up there and then dropping it back, but he's back in control at the moment, and he has Zach Novak on the bumper. That 19 of Chris Sherburne, your pole sitter, has not been really engaging in a lot of the moving up and down the racetrack. Just as we note that, there goes Zach Novak back from the bottom of the racetrack, going to go to the top. He made the move into corner number 1, not the best place to get a lot of momentum. He'll get a good charge, I think, down the back straightaway with the help of the 31, and he might just get it. It'll be tight to corner number 3. I didn't think he'd have enough, but the assist to Malik Ray, and back in front goes the 5. So these guys making it look easy up front, continue to swap out the race lead.
I almost wonder if they're starting to try to figure out perhaps where the draft's working with the temperature that we have. Of course, it's staying that steady 81 in the air at 102 on the track. Wind's dying down just a hair, but that really shouldn't change too much, as it looks like just Zach and Ryan, Zach Novak and Ryan Luza, they're really switching back and forth, using that outside line kind of as a pick. And if I was Malik Ray, I would be trying to get in this, as well as Chris Sherburne, because it seems like every other lap they just ends up getting in front. One of these times, one of these drivers, whether it's Malik Ray or Jimmy Mullis on this outside line, are going to make it 3 wide and try to push Ryan to the outside, but I just don't know who's going to pull that trigger. Of course, we're only 28 laps in. We've had it green so far, knock on wood, and it's just something you want to continue to see. You want these guys to get to a green flag pit stop, as we end up getting nearer and nearer to that. This little leapfrog up front, I don't mind it right now. It looks pretty good. I think people are just testing each other right now, but it only takes one little moment of getting loose, or one little bump in a corner, to smell disaster.
Yeah, that's all it takes at a place like this, running over 200 miles an hour like they are right now. 204 on the speed right now, 205 before they hit turn number 3 right here. And you see Malik Ray trying everything he can. The problem is he's just not able to get the 13 of Jimmy Mullis up to his back bumper. How about that? Sliding right in front of that 29 machine. What a bold move right there for Malik Ray, right in front of Adam Benefield. Benefield says, I've had enough of that. He moves up to the top side now. He'll lead the charge on the outside lane as they head back to 1.
The more these guys continue to race like this up front means that obviously there's less opportunities for guys further back in the pack to continue to work their way up. A couple of guys who started outside the top 10 that are inside the top 10 right now. We mentioned Jimmy Mullis earlier. Brian Blackford is one of them. Started 15th. He was 6th the last time by. Taylor Hurst, who started 16th. It runs in the number 8 spot at the moment. The more maybe submissive the guys are up front, the more that they don't want to engage in all of the action going on up. Obviously, the guys who are being a little bit more aggressive towards the back can kind of get the benefits of that. A little bit of a tight squeeze that time off of 4, though. Looked like Chris Overland trying to keep that 24 just to the right-hand side of the 8 of Taylor Hurst, and doesn't really work out when you're on the inside. Got really tight with the 13 of Jimmy Mullis. Both those guys checked it up. They're going to be fine. And actually, that 13 lost a little bit of speed off of the corner. He drops down to the inside of the racetrack, gets in line behind him. But just as it looks like the outside lane's going to die off, 3-4 drivers jump right back up there, and they give another run.
it's starting to turn into a bit of just highway traffic. People are constantly switching back and forth between these lanes. They've got on a lap car of James Curl. This is actually a bad spot to catch him. That outside line is going to probably have to dip down to the inside, get a little closer than they want to get to that inside line. Everyone looks to be getting through fairly clean right now, going through the tri-oval. James Curl, will he try to insert himself into this, or will he let the entirety of the field catch back? He should have more than enough draft as that all-yellow car, the 21 of John Gorlinski, ends up going through there. He'll tuck in and try to sneak up some of that draft as they're still going through wide a little bit in front of him. Chris Overland involved there. That actually really seems to almost have like a bowling ball effect, where it really just took out that top line as everyone had to kind of scrub speed to allow that lap car to get by. Nothing wrong with it. Everyone's gotten through cleanly, and that's exactly what you want to see. But right now, it's just Ryan Michaeluza, Zach Novak, Chris Shearburn on your front, and we got to see who's going to take to the top line. Oh, it's Taylor Hurst, Malik Ray right off the bat.
Yeah, it is a bold move by those guys. How about the 15 of Brian Blackford saying, I'm back to the bottom here. You guys are going to slow us up just a bit here. Topside kind of lost some players in there a couple laps ago. Everybody looked like they were coming down to the bottom lane. Of course, you'll start seeing that when it gets closer and closer to these green flag pit stops as well, too, as we work lap 33 now down the back straightaway. How about some three wide action up there for that fifth spot? The 15, Brian Blackford, looking to make some action here by himself. Now Malik Ray into the back bumper of him as they drops down to the bottom. That'll check that top side up just a bit. The 8, Taylor Hurst, up to that third lane. Now he tries to slide his way back down to the middle. We got a lot of action going on here up front here just before the first round of pit stops.
Yeah, that was a pretty good hit, too, between the 31 and the 15. Keep an eye to see if that really starts to cause some problems for Malik Ray in the front end of that car. What looked like what happened was the 15 of Brian Blackford was trying to get out of the gas, jump in line behind the 19. Just as he did that, Ray was coming down from the top lane down to that middle lane and tagged him with the right rear quarter panel. You can visibly see the damage, at least on the back of the 15 of Brian Blackford. The 31 of Malik Ray, who I think would be the driver who, out of those two, would have more of an issue from the contact. That beat on the front of the race car now goes up to a third lane, so we will go 3 wide once again off of quarter number 4, and tight quarters it is. Chris Overland goes to the inside, and he wants to help out the 21 of John Gorlinski, pushes him through and clear the 31, who now is dropping back on the outside.
Chris Overland, he almost couldn't make up his mind that nose of his Ford Fusion did have a little bit of play in it. It actually caught my voice in my throat for just a second there until he regained control of that when he was 3 wide, that double clutch car moving perhaps on the outside of Gorlinski. No, he'll think better of it. It's sort of strange how people are setting themselves up. If you follow the line, if you were to draw a line, it's almost zigzagging now all the way back through until we don't have standard 2-wide racing right now. But from what we see, Ryan Luza, he's had the front, but of course he's going to be burning off a little bit more of that fuel. So when they do start coming into pits, of course, he's probably going to need a little bit more fuel. It's not going to be, maybe a tenth or two, but when it comes to green flag pit stops, and we are to the winter to start talking about that, Andy, that could make a difference between, the first is running right now, and then you've got all the way back to 23rd, all 1.6 second apart, so a tenth of a second could be huge.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm also seeing a lot of movement out of these cars as you go through the corners here. You see a lot of guys, like you said, pushing up a little bit higher. Even the bottom lane's not down on the yellow, and I think a lot of that has to do with the handling in these cars right now. The fuel, obviously, out of these cars, almost to the end of this fuel run right now, and it makes that car a lot lighter in that rear end, too. Plus the tire wear. I mean, you got to throw a lot of this in there. And I think I heard over the radio not too long ago, the 24 just saying way too loose to drive on the bottom. So that's why we're seeing him up towards the top. So I imagine for a lot of these drivers as well, too, some major adjustments to come on this first round of pit stops. And you don't typically think of handling issues when you come to a place like Daytona because you're running such a high rate of speed. But Daytona, more than Talladega, handling is an issue when it comes to this racetrack. Whoa, trouble! Turn 3, the 24, the 21, big damage for a lot of drivers.
That one was right up near the front of the field. Caution flag going to be out for the first time tonight, and there is a lot of junk down in quarters number 3 and 4. We'll take a second look at that one in just a moment on the RaceSpotTV replay. It all started out of nowhere up front. We were talking about these guys on the front row, and I was just about to pose the question, when did these guys start to back it down just a little bit to get ready to come down pit road at lap 37? And it looked like the 24 of Chris Overland, Andy, you were just talking about handling. He had some sort of a bobble in the center of the quarter. It slowed him way up, and there was no hope on behalf of John Gorlinski to be able to keep off of him. The 24 gets turned around in front of the racetrack, and they got blocked behind him.
He had about 2 good wiggles, and he ended up getting caught out. And for Gorlinski, he could have perhaps dove down to the inside, but then he would have just collected the 19 of Chris Shearburn. Really nothing that 21 car could have done. And once they started wrecking, it's good to see everybody really just nailed on the brakes, but there's only so much you can do when you're running at 200 miles an hour going through a corner. A bunch of cars seriously wrecked out, and some with carrying moderate damage. They're going to try to get that sorted out and fixed right now. Sorting through, my rough estimate now is perhaps 15 cars that at least look to me like they're carrying damage, but that number could certainly be more.
Well, we know that Overland involved in that one, obviously. John Gorlinski, Jimmy Mullis, the number 16, was also involved in that one. Jake Nichols, looks like Nick Morse, Chris Overland, Garrett Lowe, Malik Ray, David Rattler, Christian Challoner. Those were all the guys who were immediately behind that, and I would say there's probably at least a dozen cars who were involved in that one. When we come back live, though, drivers are down pit road for the first time, but it is under the caution flag. They're led down by Ryan Luza, the driver of the number 2. Talking about tires, he will go with 4 fresh tires and fuel. The 2 is in and out of the pit lane. He will not be the first off. How about Zach Novak, third to first with his stop, who also went with 4 tires?
Yeah, a couple of other guys just now. Everybody's getting their stuff sorted out, and it's hard to try to figure out who's actually in there just for pits and who's in there for straight-up repairs. There's a couple of cars going out. Parker Steele, he's on his way out. Blake Reynolds is on his way out. Ryan Lowe, Robbie Vrabel. And it's unfortunate to see this because we were so close to that green flag pit stop, but you never know what could have happened. They could have junked it perhaps going into that first time. The outside line wanted to get in, and the inside line wouldn't let it. So you never know what could have happened. But it's unfortunate to see. But just as Andy, you were talking about, these tires are getting loose. The fuel load's getting lighter and lighter every single lap. That air is just throwing people around more and more. And it's a sad thing to see all these cars lined up here on pit road. But the pit crews are going to have some time to work on them.
Yeah, definitely going to have plenty of time to work on them here under the caution. Of course, it takes well over a minute and a half to get around this racetrack under the caution flag. So for a lot of these drivers, some with minimal damage, this will be the opportunity they have to get those repairs done. And, as long as you don't have too much damage to that front nose and you get yourself in the draft, you should be all right.
Really, up until this point, we had seen plenty of action up front, which was good, and it was keeping things exciting and fresh up at the front of the field, basically swapping out the lead lap, at least once every 2 laps. But it really didn't look like these guys were being overly aggressive to any extent. Everybody was still in the lead pack. We had seen some 3 wide, but it wasn't like we saw a lot of slam drafting. Nobody was really pinching each other down. It looked like a relatively well thought out start to the race. I think that everybody appeared to be on the same page, and it was just that unfortunate bobble with Gorlinski right there really having nothing as an option or a last resort to get out of the way. That leads to the yellow. I don't really think that you can kind of chalk that one up as anything different than just a racing incident, and it's unfortunate for all the guys who get torn up in that one. Some guys, the damage is minor enough to the point where they're going to be able to get down on the pit lane and try to get it fixed over the course of the night. They have plenty more than 5 minutes if they need to get that car fixed and get it back out onto the racetrack, and unfortunately for some other guys, their nights are done.
Yeah, and it looks like right now just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars are not on the lead lap. I have a feeling that is going to probably end up getting it to be a little bit worse. 1 car stopped on the back straight. That is the number 11, as trying to sort out whom that might be. That is going to be Blake Reynolds. He's got his car sorted out and started again. Perhaps he just needed to get that thing fired up once again, something to that effect, as Reynolds will see if maybe he'll go into the pits, maybe he won't, as we celebrate lap 40 under our very first caution here at the iRacing Daytona 500.
Yeah, the restart is going to put us with, well, 1/5 distance behind us, just about. 40 going to be in the books this time by of the 200 on the night. Rough number right now, still showing 31 drivers on the lead lap, but we were talking about Logan Clampett earlier. Did want to give an update. Last time we really checked in, he was that one lap down a bit damaged. At some point over the course of that green flag run, the #1 team said that that's it. They brought that car behind the wall. Logan's Clampett night is done. He will walk away with a 37th place finish after coming into tonight as the #1 seed. It also looks like Malik Ray's night is done. That car is not currently out on the racetrack, and I think that they've taken it behind the wall. They're done. Cody Bias with some pretty substantial damage. He, David Rattler, and Chris Overland are the drivers who are 2 laps down at the moment. Overland just officially brought his machine behind the wall as well.
Yeah, a lot of drivers bringing it behind the wall. A few of them, like you said, just 1 lap down here. Notably, a couple that were running up towards the front. Garrett Lowe, he's got damage. He's in the 1 car. Or, excuse me, he's 1 lap down in that 7 machine. The 10 of David Washington as well, who was up in that front group. Almost made it all the way through, but just got clipped by the 24 of Overland just last minute in that door, trying to get damage fixed in that vehicle as well, too. So a lot of them still with that, but still 26, like you said, on the lead lap. So plenty of drivers to get this thing done. And, of course, as this goes along, and maybe a couple more cautions, we'll get some of these other drivers back up into the mix, too, as well. And the night's definitely not over. Tons and tons of laps here left to go.
So they shuffled up the running order just a little bit when they were down pit stop. As we noted, Zach Novak is your new race leader as we get set to go back under green flag conditions. Ryan Luza fell to P2 after coming down for 4 tires of gas. Brian Blackford, Chris Sherbert, and Taylor Hurst inside of the top 5 with 26 drivers on the lead lap for the restart. The iRacing.com Ford Mustang GT down, off, and away. Green flag flies. We're back at it with 41 complete.
Looking back, we have a grand total right now. 27 cars had taken it at the full start, so we still got a very healthy pack here. Hopefully everyone gets away nice and easy. Once again, we'll settle back into that pace where we were before. Ryan Luza on the outside, Zach Novak on the inside, Brian Blackford and Chris Shearburn pushing respectively on both lanes as everyone seems to be sorting their way out. Hopefully we can have a clean restart. Yellows do normally breed yellows, but not so far. Hopefully we can continue it to be that way. I think after seeing that last wreck, Andy, everyone might be taking it just a little bit easier.
Yeah, a little bit easier, and also knowing that when those fuel cells start to get a little bit lower, maybe taking it a little bit easier as the run goes on as well. The front group, though, here, about 10 drivers strong here, battling for this top spot here as Luza runs the outside lane. He's got the 19 for Shearburn. But Dylan Jones, 3rd in line on the top side in that 32 machine, qualified 22nd. Finds himself now up in the top 5 here as they race down the back straightaway.
Drag race this time. These guys already back up to speed in the excess of 200 miles an hour that time. We'll go 3 wide around the lap. Traffic into the corner. Not the best place to catch somebody, but it looks like we're going to be able to get around the 35, Tyler Laughlin, who grazes the outside fence in the center of the corner just to give those guys that little bit of extra real estate, and everybody's able to keep on trucking up at the front of the field. Inside, Zach Novak, the advantage that time was just 2/100ths of a second at the start-finish line. Looking like that 50 to Brian Blackford. Just to quickly return to something that we were talking about earlier, the contact he had with Malik Ray, the right rear damage on that car doesn't look that bad, and it doesn't appear to be slowing him down much at all as he sits at the back bumper of the 5, Zach Novak, and the 5 wouldn't be leading if that car behind him wasn't doing a good job pushing, so I think the 15 can kind of rest easy. I don't think that damage is playing too big of a problem on him at the moment.
No, and he can cover it fairly well. Plus, I'm pretty sure there are quite a couple of other cars carrying just a smidge of damage, so wouldn't be too surprised if we don't see Brian probably running up front at some point here. He'll probably snake around at some point. I wouldn't be too worried about getting up front. I'd like to save the fuel, but you always got to remember about the engine temperatures here. But obviously, these guys definitely know what they're doing. We saw that that last stint The first stint of this race, nobody seemed to have any engine issues as they're going around more lap traffic here. I think everyone's just sorting out perhaps where their cars are, and the cars that are fairly a bit more significantly damaged will probably pull into the pits and call it a day, whereas the rest of the other cars will probably just pull onto the rear and hopefully try to make their way back. But for Zach, he's got to look at Brian Blackford right now. Where is Brian going to go? Is he going to stay behind? He's staying behind. Taylor Hurst is staying behind. Ryan Lewis is staying behind. And Chad Lawton is staying behind. I almost wouldn't be too surprised if these guys all start trying to perhaps pull away from that second group.
Yeah, just stay basically single file right now. Maybe that first accident really, that first caution there really caught these guys saying, hey, you know what? There's way too much laps to go here. Over 150 still left to go in this race here. And just as I say that, here comes the 8th, Taylor Hurst, with the help of Ryan Luza. They're going to move to the outside and try to take over this lead in turn 3.
Yeah, they'll make it a side-by-side battle for the race lead. This time off for the corner. 2 sets of 2 inside and outside. Almost looking a little bit like the tandem race here, the drafted of the past. And it's going to be close at the line, the inside. Just still too fast in the place to be. Again, if you're going to go topside, what we've seen tonight, I think, is really you need 3-4 drivers at minimum to be able to get you around those guys. 2 cars can stay up there. You can even be up there by yourself. If you're pinching these guys down, and you might be able to hang around at about second or third spot, but you do need, I think, more than just 2 cars to be able to get the job done. Let's see if 3 is the magic number. Now the 27 is joining them topside. That is Colton Davis. So 3 drivers on the top. Every single other car decides that the double yellow line is the place to be.
Yeah, the one just seems to be covering it fairly well. That outside line of 3 actually running a fairly good momentum right now. Taylor Hurst up front there, but as he will be able to lead a lap, so give 1 to that number 8 car. That Chevrolet SS, he's able to lead a lap. He's going to take the nose away from Zach Novak. I think everyone's giving themselves a fair bit of a bubble. It's a single file now all the way through as they're starting to just sort each other out. I wouldn't be too surprised if Luza and Davis start going into single file unless they can get a fairly good run here and see if they can get somebody else. Perhaps Chad Lawton can catch up. Perhaps Blackford will go back up top, but it's not too surprising to see everyone going in a single file, especially after that big, the big pileup to start, or to end the first stint, I guess I should say. But actually, it looks like there perhaps is an outside line looking from Jacob Harberts, and he went way low now. So I think he's just right now looking for perhaps where he could cool his engine. I thought he was going to try to slingshot to the outside, but we'll see what these groups develop. It is a patient game. They're going through a lot of lap traffic. They're trying to figure out where the lap traffic is and how to deal with them.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they got more lap traffic to deal with here as they work their way into turn number 3. It looks like the lap traffic, though, this time going to stay on the bottom side. Kind of an interesting call right there. Typically move to the top. It's going to make everybody snake around him, and that's an interesting call right there. Typically, like I said, most of the guys go up to the top side, but the slow car going to stay on the bottom. Everybody able to get around him, but it's going to give Novak back the lead right now. No help for the moment here as he tries to keep that lead into turn number 1. The 27, he's going to jump up to the top side of Colton Davis, and of course Blackford thought about it, chose differently now as he moves back to the bottom side, just in front of that 30 of Chad Lawton off turn 2.
Wanted to give a call to some of the guys who are right here knocking on the door of these guys up front. We've been giving a couple shout-outs to guys who have been working their way forward. Colton Davis, one of them, who is now plus 20, or actually to this point now, plus 31 positions on the racetrack. But there's a couple of the guys that are just on the edge, haven't quite been able to get into the battle up front. Robbie Vrabel Jr., Patrick Mallett, Blake Reynolds, and Ryan Lowe, they all started 32nd and deeper in the field, and last time by they ran 11th through 14th. So those guys have more or less, and maybe unintentionally so, been following each other up through the field to get the job done. Keep an eye on those guys. I might think that those guys really have no reason, I would argue, to go any further. I mean, lot 51 in the works right now of 200. We're at quarter distance. I think they're in a perfect spot to be a part of this. We're not getting into the, at times, a little bit dicey action closer to the front of the field as these guys continue to routinely lap in and lap out. Continue to trade things off at the front of the field. They are there, but I don't think they're too close for too comfortable right at the moment.
Yeah, and just snaking through the outside. Like I said, they get the 3 cars, as we've all been alluding to. They get the 3 cars. They get a pretty good run going. They've got a lap car, though, Nicholas Morris, as they will go right on by. But you get the 3 cars. I think they putter across. They get somebody up to the inside line. Somebody cuts across the nose and gets that inside line, and then sort of peters away. At some point, though, someone's going to try to use that to their advantage. I think it's pretty much... I think it's safe enough to say that you want to be up front, as just the cars looking right through now. Your top 5 are within a stone's throw of each other. Well, not even a stone's throw. I mean, you can fit a paper between most of these guys. And then you've just sort of got that safer pack now going all the way through the back. But not a lot of people seem to be dropping off the rear draft, though, Andy. So the pack is staying together. There is one group being led by Alex Berger in the 18th position. There's 4 cars there, but it's just, well, you've got these different little packs starting to work on, and we'll just see where they go from here.
Yeah, and it's also a product of damage on some of these race cars as well, too. That's going to hurt the speed. Of course, 2-3 miles an hour difference is going to make a huge difference at this type of racetrack and the way these guys are racing. So just that little bit's going to put some of these guys off the pace just enough that over the course of a run, it's going to put them back 10, 12, 15, 20 seconds, even more as we go. How about the 5 of Novak, though? Basically left out to dry up on that high side. Just dropping all the way back, close to getting out of sight that top 10 with no relief on that bottom lane for him to move in there. So it could be trouble for him. And I wouldn't say trouble, but back towards the back of the pack, and not a place where he's been at all over the course of tonight.
He's been doing a great job of staying up there, and how about that move? I didn't think he'd fit, but he just squeezes in between, looks like the 3 of Dylan Duval and the 19 of Chris Shearbird. I thought that the guys up front that were kind of starting to look topside again were going to pull him back up there, but it looks like that he just happened to be the odd man out when they finally decided to stay single file. He was the one that just so happened to be the lone man stuck on the outside of the racetrack. That time by single file, top to bottom in the lead pack, which is 17 cars deep. There is a secondary pack that is much further behind, something that we did not see in the opening stint of this race. 18th through 21st is Brandon Boulos. You've got John Gorlinski, Aaron Likens, and Alex Bergeron. A couple of those guys do have damage. They're by themselves 9 seconds off the lead.
Yeah, that pack also including Aaron Likens, one of our RaceSpotTV commentators. I wasn't too quite sure off the top of the bat, but because normally once, Evan, you know this, normally once we start getting into the booth, we don't really get to race anymore, so it's exciting to see somebody that we do commentary with in the IndyCar, especially Aaron. He's one of the flaggers in USAC, and definitely one of the many popular guys in the IndyCar series. Good to see him out here in a stock car, too. He's in that, he's trapped a little bit right now in that second pack. But you know what? All it takes is, I think, one little bit of caution, somebody taking a spin. You're going to have this pack, this grouped up once together. It wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody doesn't spin, somebody with damage, and closes this group up once again. But I think right now, everyone there just kind of just taking it easy, I think, is not a very accurate term when you're driving 200 miles an hour at Daytona International. But it's about the closest thing I can come up with.
It's similar to just logging laps. That's what they're doing right now, just trying to get themselves to that next round of pit stops, not trying to do anything too evasive right now and to make themselves in that position. Of course, with that big accident, took a lot of drivers up towards the front of the field out of this. They know that. They want to make it to the end. You want that good finish in this race. And you know what? Right now, just settle down. Take it easy. It's exactly what we're seeing right now, a single file action all the way through this whole top group here, the top 17 drivers, all single file. You see Blackford, though, up there in that third spot, peeking his nose out off turn number 4. Not sure if he really wants to go for that run or not, but if not, he's just trying to cool that thing off. He ducked back down in line, and they continue to make that single file trek all the way into turn number 1.
Kind of curious why they've decided to kind of get into that single file line at the moment, because
Evan?
Obviously in that first stint, a caution behind these guys.
Yeah, there's a couple of cars. It was Parker J. Steele and somebody else was involved in it. It was them and Bruno Barbugli. Barbugli and Steele were involved getting replay. Going through the tri-oval, it looked like they were right behind Justin Bolton, and just a little bit of tapping and pinballing, and really threw Parker J. Steele right into that outside wall just after the start-finish line. And so that is going to be our second caution.
Yeah, it happened right at the back of that single file line. You think that getting in line would kind of calm things down. The 34 was having a rough ride through the tri-oval. Not sure if he was trying to get down in front of, at that point, the car behind him to get down in the single file line, or if he was still trying to hang on, because we've noted a couple of times, Andy, the cars do get out of shape in the tri-oval, and there was a little bit of contact just prior to that 34 getting out of control, but it snapped right up the hill, and you saw it on that replay as we come back to live now, shot straight into the fence and basically totaled that car.
Yeah, that's one of the, probably the tri-oval's probably one of the more trickier places on this racetrack. As far as the cars getting out of shape, it's such a quick transition from flat to banking, but it's not a long sweeping like we see in the corners. It's just a quick transition back down to the straightaway, and for some reason, for whatever reason it is, I'm no engineer, but for some reason that's definitely a place that these cars do have a tendency to get like that and tend to push up a little bit, and little things like that, a little tap like that at 200 miles an hour doesn't take much, and Parker Steele up into the wall. And our second caution of the night as we get set for pit stops.
The amount of cars involved in this one are much lower than what happened on the last one, but this caution does come at a little bit more of an interesting point. We were basically right at the pit window when that first caution came out. This one only about 20 laps later, so it will affect the fuel strategy for the rest of the race. It was also a shorter run, so some guys might decide to go with 2 tires, having only gone half the time at which they did on the last stint, which led them to taking 4 tires. We'll find out. Ryan Lewis going to once again lead us down to the pit lane. He did so last time, but lost a spot on pit road. The number 2 Ford is in.
Everybody now screeching the tires into their pit stalls. Doesn't look like anybody seems to have had any big issues getting into their stall. Normally what will end up happening, somebody will slide it. But Chris Sherburne, he is, of course, your front running position. Garrett Lowe right there. Zach Novak, one of your front guys. Ryan Luza, he's able to get away ahead of everybody by a mile, almost by the looks of it. And Colton Davis is going to be there. Dylan C. Jones, Dylan Duvall, and Zach Novak. So a lot of these guys making some very, very, very quick pit stops. And that actually pushes some of your front-running cars well back. And that's, well, you know what? It's not surprising, seeing Ryan Luza up front, but you've got a couple of good names up here that decided to make a couple of moves, playing some leapfrog here in pit lane.
Yeah, a bunch of the drivers, 2-tire stop, possibly for someone. Well, obviously depends on how the tire wear is going, and they definitely got a good read on that over the course of that first run where we made almost a full fuel run on that one. So a few drivers out there looking for that wave around, trying to get back on the lead lap as well too. Still on the field right now, 3 cars shown 1 lap down, so hopefully those guys get their lap back if they stay out and get that wave around. But Luza, they've been spot on the pit stop. It's just that one stop cost him a couple spots, but this one here, his crew was right on, and they were able to get out ahead of everybody on that one. But definitely, we talked about the guys moving up towards the front, and the guys that were able to stay up front this whole time in the first 60 laps or so here. And one of those guys that continues to impress here over the course of this is that guy in the 32, Evan. It's just he was able. I watched the replay there of that first accident. What he was able to do to get through that big melee of cars in 3 and 4 was absolutely phenomenal. And what it did was put him from somewhere outside the 20th position up into this top 10, top 5 area. And now he's got a good opportunity here to make some noise at the end of this thing.
That's the fun thing about when you take a look at the stats. Stats don't necessarily tell the entirety of the story. You could have somebody like Colton Davis, who started 35th and runs in second at the moment. He is currently your biggest mover on the racetrack with that plus 33. You could have somebody who, works and gets a couple spots here and there on each stint and worked really hard to get themselves up to the front. And you could have somebody from the same distance back that closes their eyes, gets through a wreck, and gets their way up. But that doesn't necessarily, tell the whole story. For Chris Sherburne, he started on pole position tonight, runs in 9th. If he wins this race, we'll note that he started on pole, he won the race, and one would look at those two stats, try to put 2 and 2 together, and figure that he's been up there all night. Now, he hasn't been out of the picture like some guys who have fallen a little bit further back, but falling to 9th back about 5 rows on the restart means that the 19's going to have to get up on the wheel and get going. So there's a lot that happens over the course of a race. There's even more that happens over the course of a 500-mile race. And again, just past quarter distance, pacing at lap number 61 of 200.
Yeah, right now, of course, the car sitting behind that is Christian Chalner, or Challenger, depending on which side of the pond I think we're talking from. But as the rest of the field, I think these are guys that are obviously they're just looking to get their laps back. They will go on to pass the pace car probably this time by. Yep, the lights go out on that Ford Mustang pace car. And so your lap cars sneaking away and out front. Your proper leaders will start sorting themselves out. Ryan Luza, he'll be on your inside. Colton Davis, he'll be on your outside. Hopefully these guys will have a good start, but it's important to note some of these guys haven't been this up front for the last restart, so now they're going to have to figure out just how and where they're going to go.
Yeah, a few of those drivers we mentioned just a moment ago, Colton Davis, Dylan Jones, Dylan Duvall, 29th to 4th right now here for this restart. A bunch of those guys, even Jacob Herberts, haven't talked much about him in that 17 machine, 21st to 7th, great job by him as well. And then, of course, the rest of these guys that have already been up in the top 5, top 10 all night long, making out this top 10 before we get back underway. So a lot of different things happening on pit road. Some guys trying some pit strategy with 2 tires. Other guys just decided to go with the 4, like Ryan Luza. He's going to find himself leading us back to the green flag here in lap 63.
He is going to be able to maintain that top spot through the caution flag this time. Again, on the last yellow, he was the leader at the yellow, lost the spot on the pit lane, as we've noted. So this is how the top 10 will double up for this restart. It's going to be Luza and Davis on row number 1, Dylan Jones, Dylan Duvall back on row 2, Zach Novak alongside with Chad Lawton back on row number 3, Jacob Harberts, Chris Sherbert will start from row 4, and it is going to be Taylor Hursted, Robbie Frapel Jr. back on row number 5. In through the top 10, this restart going to come with still 22 cars on the lead lap. The number 2 going to be in control for the restart. American Ethanol, green flag flies. We're back at it from Daytona. Good jump on the inside.
Already some trouble far in the back of the pack. I think there was a bit of a stuttered start, a bit of a hesitation once the pace car jumped off. I think a couple of cars was James Curl and somebody else ended up collecting, but the rest of the field looks like they're getting away fairly cleanly right now. Luza's still got the power on the inside. That outside line fades away as it always does here on restarts. Colton Davis is going to be sliding his way in front of Zach Novak. Novak, oh, where was he? I mean, you're going into the pits and you were right up front. Now you've got 3 other cars in front of you, and especially if you're Chris Shearburn or Brian Blackford, I mean, you've got pretty much a whole fleet of cars on both lanes now in front of you. So it's a couple of slow pit stops costing them, but for Ryan Luza, well, he's fairly good right now. Dylan C. Jones, it's going to be the first time pushing him. Colton Davis, first time he's up front as we already complete 1 lap. We're already on lap number 64.
Colton Davis looking to use that second lane now with the help of the 5 of Zach Novak as they head into turn number 1. They'll move to the outside of Dylan Jones now. Dylan Jones trying to keep that 2 machine just ahead of him right there and keep the lead as they race their way off of turn number 2. Some momentum now for that top side as the 27 pulls up even now with Dylan Jones, who tries to make a bid for the lead into 3.
The challenge off into the corner. The disadvantage that you have on the outside of the racetrack is that you got to go up the banking, up the hill, which is about 3 stories tall at 31 degrees of banking. It's not the best thing for momentum. They lose about 5 to 6 miles an hour between when they enter the corner and when they exit the corner for the guys on the outside of the racetrack, which is why the majority of the passes you'll see happen right into corner number 3, because the longest straight shot on the racetrack is down that Daytona super stretch between corners 2 and 3, and you really got to hook up, get the run off of the turn, and basically use every single foot on that back straightaway to get the job done. People can do it on the front stretch, but again, it's a little bit dicey trying to tie together those 2 short chutes between corner 4 and the tri-oval and then back off to turn number 1. It's definitely plausible. Off of this restart, the outside was there much sooner, but it fell away very quickly. That time in corner 4, everybody single file.
Yeah, and I think that this is almost a strategy bet at this point. Everyone just looking to keep themselves safe, and of course, making the moves that you want to make. It's not like, of course, we've got we've got 22 different drivers right now on that lead lap in this pack. It doesn't take but one person to move out, and then everyone will just stay down and they'll cycle right on back. It takes people working together. As you see, Colton Davis, he's going to try, and this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about here. So thank you, Colton, for bringing this out, as he'll actually be able to skirt in, though that will lose him a little bit of momentum. It's who you know in a way, where when people are coming out, see Brian Blackford comes out, and you've already got 3-4 cars looking to jump out, and they'll cycle back on in. So you need to make this outside line. They want to. There's people, but you've got to get that number of cars out there. You got to get that real estate rolling. You got to figure out who you're going to be pushing with, and it's a very it's a very tiptoey game, I have to say, of touch and go. Because if you go out there early and nobody lets you back in, you're going to cycle your way all the way back to the back of this pack.
Yeah, that's exactly what we saw that last run with the 5 with no back. He went up to the top side. Nobody else wanted to go with him. The hole closed, and he went right to the back of this pack. Right now finds himself, though, in that 6th spot here off of turn number 4. And doing a good job this time, at least staying up there. A little bit of a gap, though, between 3rd and 4th right now. As you see the 27. Once again, a Colton Davis peeking his nose out, maybe to cool that engine down just a bit. He's been on that back bumper of Brian Blackford over the last 5 laps or so. So it's just one of them things now. You see the momentum start to pick back up as he got a little bit of a draft help and gets him back up in there, and that gap once again closes up, and now the momentum picks up too. Do they jump to the outside? Well, the 27 thought about it, but Blackford chooses not to. He drops in line. That's going to force the rest of them back in line, single file in 3.
And it might not have looked like it, but it was a little bit of a choppy move there with that 15 check it up. The 27 was kind of hanging out on that right rear quarter panel, jumped to the outside because the 15 lifted. The point that I was trying to get to right before that last accident happened through the tri-oval was, why did we wait for this second stint to get single file? And it actually seemed like we had less close calls, interestingly enough, on that first stint when we were side by side, basically through the whole lead pack. The when we were single file now, your automatic instinction, Cam, is to get single file because that's the way to take it easy. But sometimes when you keep checking up in front of guys and trying to maintain that single file, that accordion effect gets passed on down through the rows, and sometimes it can work against you. I think if you're trying to be too safe at a plate track, you're almost putting yourself in more of a dangerous position than if you were just kind of letting the car flow out and do its thing.
Zach Novak and it looks like Jacob Herbarts are trying to perhaps more start that outside line, and it only, especially when you're following somebody else. Everybody here, and to some degree, knows everybody else here. And what ends up happening is you start dealing with the same people, stint after stint, lap after lap after lap. You start getting a feel for what they want to do, and you might start getting tired behind somebody's bumper. Perhaps you're getting a little antsy behind them. You're not really liking how they're taking a particular corner, and perhaps they keep dipping their wheel onto the apron or below that double yellow line and start scrubbing off speed. So you're going to start trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to launch my way around the outside this time by who's going to be joining with me, who's my friends or people that I feel like would come with me, as they're going to start coming onto this lapped car of James Curl once again. This, of course, was one of the cars that had a bit of an issue getting started that last restart. But overall, I mean, it's waiting for that moment of who wants to take it through. And if I was Ryan Luza, I would almost be willing to lose this lead at some point, as here comes perhaps an outside line. Nope. And Blackford tips back in because he's using so much more fuel punching that hole at 200 miles an hour in this Daytona air that it's going to really cost him in the long run, because he's going to start losing fuel.
Yeah, it definitely is. The guy leading a pack or the race, like you see here with the two, they do lose a little bit more fuel than these other drivers, because the drivers behind them at times are maybe 3/4 throttle just to keep off the back bumper of the guy in front of them. So it does play into effect, but it doesn't typically make an issue, I don't think, anyway, over the long run. I've done a lot of these as we see a second lane start to form up. Blackford finally gets some help. He's got the 27, the 5, and the 17, and Jacob Herbarts, we talked about him starting 21st in that 7th spot now. So The bottom lane, better look out now. There's got numbers and strength on the top side as they work their way through 3 and 4, and it's not going to be too long here. Blackford now looking for the lead.
He's got a great head of steam coming off of the corner this time. The 27, nice and tucked up on the bumper. Not going to be able to get there by the start-finish line, and they're going to end up coming up just a little bit shy by the time we get back off to corner 1. Comes up about a half a car length short of even getting to that side-by-side position. And a big person in all of this is that 32 Dylan C. Jones. He is in, I think, the best position on track, but also the most difficult, because if you're second in line on the inside, as we've seen many a times already tonight in just the 72 laps that have been completed to this point, if you want to go to the outside, if there's a run coming, typically that option is going to be open to you from running that far up on the inside of the racetrack. But also it's difficult because you got to be all over that 2. You back off of the 2, those guys on the outside line are going to freight train you. There's not a whole lot Luza can do besides maybe just backing off the gas the slightest bit to let the 32 get to the bumper when they are directly side by side with the race lead. So that 32 is in, I think, the best spot to be on track. If I were to be in the race, I'd like to be running P2 right there. And even down to the end, the closing laps of this race, down inside of 5 to go, I think second may be the best place to be. But also, he is, I think, the most critical role on track right now, and Ryan Lewis are really depending on him to maintain the top spot. So far, so good. They've been working great together. 3 cars going to get lapped on the outside of the racetrack, the 36 and the 35, along with, I believe, those 2 drivers going to go 2 laps down, and then the 25 is there as well, who's going to lose what could be his 8th lap for Ryan Doucette. So all of those drivers now multiple laps down.
Now on lap 75, only 125 laps to go, and for Dylan C. Jones, I've seen a couple of times now, I think he's probably just trying to get air, but it makes a decent point. That 32 car, it's got about a car-wide length hole on the inside of the double yellow. If he really wanted to push the subject and he really wanted to get ahead of Ryan Luza, he definitely could put that Chevrolet bumper to just the inside of that Ford Fusion leading number 2 and sort of force that Ryan Luza car to the outside. And of course, once that would happen, he would push back. But that is a tactic that you would normally see when the going gets tough and people are really in a big hurry to get to the front. Right now, I think everyone's pretty content just to sit right there. They are. Perhaps Zach Novak, I know he wants to get up, back up there. Brian Blackford, I know, wants to get up there. I think everyone else, especially the cars in the back, they're just trying to hang on to this draft. I think as we're going to see lap after lap now, getting further and further into this stint, that back field, it's just it seems to be having more issues keeping up as the laps go on, whether it's tire wear, fuel, setup, however it goes. But either way, I think right now people are just holding on to what they got, and there is no problem with that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm watching these guys up front. I've been watching that 32 probably for the last 10 laps, and Evan said that he's probably the most critical spot. But if you watch as they're running single file right now, that 32 is off that back bumper. He's got a big gap between them. They come down the straightaways. Luza moves up just a little bit. What that's actually doing is putting air to the nose of that 32. Keeps him a little bit cooler. He's not forcing the issue, so he knows that Dylan Jones is not going to jam it in there and cause anything. He's letting that driver get some air because he knows he's giving him that push. And what that does, because when we saw that 5, the 17, and Blackford going for that race lead a few laps ago, all of a sudden you saw that 32 up on the back bumper, that 2 of Ryan Luza. And what that did, allowed them to keep that lead, and it allowed them to keep that momentum going on that bottom lane. So I think a real good piece of driving right now going on by those top 3 right now between Luza, Jones, and Taylor Hurst. Taylor Hurst doing basically the same thing that Jones is doing just behind him. So I think those 3 drivers right now just a real good understanding of what they need to do to get further and further and deeper into this race.
Well, there are still 20 drivers on the lead lap. The lead pack has been stretched a little bit thin as you see them ride single file at the moment. Basically, the lead pack consists of 1st through 15th, and they've got about 1.6 seconds of separation at the moment, and nobody really looking to force an issue to get to the outside of the racetrack. But everybody here is still in this. And remember, after that first yellow that came, basically when we were expecting guys to be coming down pit road regardless, it wasn't that big of a factor. figure maybe 40 laps or so can get you through this race, about 4 stops to that point. But the caution flag most recently had drivers down pit road at lap number 60. So we're kind of eyeing that halfway point for the next time that pit stops are going to be a factor in this race. That's still 21 laps away, but you can't really line things up perfectly to go 100 laps on fuel. And if it is to stay green, and again, as number of drivers at a lead lap begin to dwindle down just a little bit, the guys get a little bit more space in. I think that the odds of this race going green for an extended period of time continue to go up. We might see factions of this, lead group that's 15 cars, maybe 4 or 5 guys here or there, start to try out some different things. But at least for the moment, everybody relatively on the same page. Ryan Blackford sat in line for a couple of laps. He is back together with Colton Davis. They are the only 2 drivers in a 2-wide battle at the moment.
Yeah, and I think what I'm starting to see on the exit of the corners, coming out of 2 and coming out of 4, the cars start shooting up the track. And it's not all of them, it's just some of them. And it's starting to kind of concern me because you'll have a perfectly straight line going through the corner, and then they all seem to bottom out and they shoot out. And now it's starting to concern me just a little bit because you're starting to get now that outside line built up. Brian Blackford, he's finding himself comfortable in there. Colton Davis, he's finding himself. Blake Reynolds finding himself comfortable on the outside line. And when they wash out, just look at the exit here. See how a couple of them kind of scoot to the top a little bit. Zach Novak, he washed out a little bit. So it's only going to be a matter of time, I think, between these tires and the fuel load and all the other intangibles, that these cars are starting to lose their grip, starting to lose that inside line as the temperature, it's crossed on down now to 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the air, 102 on the track, so it's getting a little cooler in the air, a little warmer on the track, and the winds are picking up just a little bit. We're up to 8 miles an hour out of the southeast. We started with 6. So, I mean, and just, of course, as more of the rubber and whatnot gets laid down and more of these drivers get used to each other, we're just going to see this evolving race as more cars just keep flaking out.
You're absolutely right. We're seeing this lead group start to dwindle more and more. And like we said earlier in the broadcast, that guy on the tail end of the group, it's so hard to keep that draft and really rely on that car just in front of you to drag the brake just a little bit to keep that draft going. And you see that, and you'll see it start to dwindle. You also start to see this pack that we have right now of 12 cars going pretty good here, make it 15 of them in this group. That you'll start to see them after pit stops. If we have some green flag pit stops, you'll see that spread out, and you'll have groups of 5 or 6 cars that'll try to do it. We got a battle for the lead, though, shaping up. Some guys not afraid to go to the top now at this point in the run here. You got the 8 now of Taylor Hurst, who had been very comfortable running that 3rd spot on that bottom lane. He decides to go to the high side. He's got the help now. Zach Novak, edge out just a bit, but momentum's going to be killed into 3.
Yeah, I thought that they had a perfect run going there because they had more guys on the outside of the racetrack than guys at the inside, but that's going to change now that that 17 to Jacob Harberts looks back to the inside. He'll go back topside this time. Again, I think 3 cars should be able to beat out 2, but you're in a much tougher position because now you kind of get stuck side by side with the guy who's leading the inside line, which is Ryan Luza. The 8 did have it the last time by, will squeak 3 wide to get around the lap traffic, and in all of that commotion, Hurst goes down to the inside. So the number 8 Chevrolet to the point at lap number 84 as these 5 drivers at the front of the 15-car lead pack use it up the little bit of real estate they have over 6th on back and making some moves. Looks like they will fall back to single file.
Yeah, as they're just sorting themselves through. A little bit of a change at the front. Taylor Hurst, that number 8 Chevrolet now instead of that number 2 Ford, but that seems to be, well, that's okay. As Brian Blackford, he's just chomping at the bit to get this outside line rolling as he has been waiting. Him and Colton Davis, lap after lap, probably the last 10 laps now, he has been trying to stick his nose out and trying to get that outside line working. It's just not happening. And we'll see perhaps who they can get along with, who they can get with, and to see who wants to play the game on the outside line. Zach Novak, he looks like he's going to try to pinch perhaps Dylan C. Jones down to the outside. Luza, he is now looking to the outside line. So we're starting to see that old racing that we saw at the very first stint here, Andy. And I got to say, well, we saw that happen. We saw a 20-car pileup, so let's hopefully avoid that, especially when we got these tires running low like this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it seems as the fuel load starts to go, the tires start to wear, we start to see the racing pick back up as well, too. You see 4 cars now strung on the top side. Colton Davis right at the tail end of that as he's trying to push the 17, get back up there, trying to group up with Ryan Luza and Zach Novak, trying to get that top lane, the momentum once again. But Dylan Jones, with the help of Brian Blackford, able to keep that 8 car of Taylor Hurst at least for the lead for now. A big run coming as they enter turn number 3. It'll be cut down just a bit here, but it might set up a good run off of turn number 4 here. Is now Luza with the momentum. Novak, though, not quite on the back bumper. Look at Dylan Jones on the back bumper of the 8. That's going to keep him the lead now at the start-finish line.
What a big slide that time, courtesy of the 32 in the trial. He was all over the back of that 8, as you noted, and car got a little bit happy on the back end there, covered through the tri-oval, a little bit out of shape. He actually just stayed in the gas and stays right there, and much to the benefit of the 8 Chevrolet in front of him, Taylor Hurst really didn't give up anything. Down the Daytona super stretch we go once again. Luza trying to get back the top spot from Hurst. He leads the outside. He's working with the 5 of Zach Novak, the 17 to Jacob Harbers. Now it's 3 on the inside and 3 on the outside. Top side got it last time when they were +1 to the guys at the bottom. It's an even strength fight at the moment for the race lead. 7th place runner trying to get into the party, Colton Davis, just a couple of car lengths off, trying to get sucked back up there.
I almost think what keeps happening is that these cars, they make a good outside line and then they end up catching a couple of lapped cars, but I think they managed to clear that last 2 cleanly, so they're going to continue that outside press. Taylor Hurst, though, he is absolutely hugging that inside double-striped yellow. Everybody else, minus those 2, is on the outside, so this entire line is just shifted to the top. I'm sure a bunch of people will dip down to the inside line. Is actually quite a bit of wiggling from Brian Blackford. He wiggled the rear got wiggled once, twice, 3 times by Jacob Harberts, but he managed to control it and bring everything back to a stable position. Now everybody back down to the inside now. That was a pretty clean merge that we saw, so that is a good thing to see, as now they're basically serpentining through some of this lap traffic. It's a tough one to predict, Andy, because that outside line, I think people really want to work out there, but it's just everyone else is so quick to abandon it and to go back to the inside line.
Yeah, they know when the momentum gets killed, and if they have the opportunity, they got to get back down there. And you can see right now the 15 of Blackford didn't have that opportunity, so running in the top 2, top 3, that's going to find him now outside the top 10 as he works all by himself here. And I was going to have a problem trying to catch that draft of the tail end of this front pack here too. So Blackford, it didn't work out for him as he slides to the back, but this is exactly why you see those guys. They'll go to the top, try to get that run, try to get that momentum. As soon as they realize that it's done and there's no momentum, they got an opportunity to get to that bottom, they'll do it, and they'll do it in a hurry. And we saw that from those front runners right there. And Blackford now going to try to hang on to the tail end of this lap. Will work his way in behind the number 4, Justin Bolton, and try to stay there and maybe try to possibly get himself back up to the front. But that's a huge change right there for one driver, running in the top 5 and now finds himself all the way back there outside the top 10. So it's just one of them things that's frustrating as a driver, because now he's got to try to figure out who to work with, and at the same time he can look now, Evan, he's a couple car lengths off that back bumper, and he's got to be careful that he can keep up with that draft as he tries to close it in here into turn 1.
Yeah, that's something that we were talking about earlier, is even when we're not just single file, it happens when you're double wide as well. The back car in the line just has issues getting up to the guys in front of him, and having people behind you obviously helps out, but for the 37 of Patrick Mallett right now, he just happens to be the 15th car in a 15-car lead pack, and he has lost touch with these guys, now 1.6 seconds off the top spot. So as Blackford drops back now, gets in line behind the 4 of Justin Bolton, he has to be very careful to not kind of find himself in the same position. What a lot of guys do when they're back in those maybe last 3 or 4 positions of the line is they get with a couple of guys, they start pushing, they go topside just to get away from that danger zone. But at any given moment, somebody has to be that last car in line. Talking about the accordion effect that these guys deal with a little bit earlier on in the race, when things get checked up towards the back, you have to be very careful to not check up too much, because you get back maybe 4 or 5 car lengths, you can basically forget about getting back to the bumper. So keep an eye on Blackford here in 14th position compared to Justin Bolton in 13th. It's about 2.5 car lengths at the moment. 15 getting a little bit sweaty back there, trying to hang on to these guys and not lose touch, like we saw Malik do just 5 laps ago.
And Colton Davis, he got shot out of corner number 4. And, I mean, when you start having this happen, of course, it is indeed a zone of danger. As the cars are now tapping off lap number 92 on to lap number 93. And there's still quite a lot of damaged cars rolling around out there. I'm kind of surprised. You would have thought at some point that the 5th or 6th or 7th time that you would have gotten lapped, that you might have gotten a hint. But you know what? People want to get their running out there, so that's okay. But for the rest of the field, though, I mean, especially for Tyler Lawton, well, he's already trying to go 2-wide with Justin Bolton, but I think that's actually going to kind of ruin him here, perhaps going into corner number 3. No, he'll think he'll keep it off coming out of 4. So all right, so he'll be okay. But yeah, I think at some point everyone's going to close up here. That wouldn't surprise me too much. If we don't have perhaps yet another caution in 5-10 laps, somebody's probably going to lose the rears. Hopefully it stays fairly sanitized and we don't see any carnage, because it seems that we get right near that window and then the cars just, they flip and get super loose, and somebody out of the field isn't able to keep it together, but hopefully they'll keep it together through this and we'll have our first run of green flag pit stops.
Yeah, it's definitely going to shake things up, too, if we do get that round of green flag pit stops here. Is this front group that is 14 cars strong right now, and it could be about 2 or 3 groups here after pit stops as well, too. So the field doing a good job staying together here in this front group. Single file once Luza has taken over, back over this race lead. No one's even given it a shot or even thought about it, except for that 27. Keeps ducking his head out on the outside lane there down the straightaway. So probably just trying to keep the front of that machine nice and cool, keep that oil temperature down. That's exactly what he wants for that number 27 of Colton Davis. You can see that right there. At least he's got Blake Reynolds there, though, on his back bumper. Keeps him in tune and in touch with these top 5 right here so they don't pull away. But this front group looking pretty strong here, and these are going to be the guys, at least as we approach the halfway point. They're going to have an opportunity to win the Daytona 500 here today.
There's no reason, I think, at this point either that these guys are going to start plotting against each other. Again, we were talking a little bit earlier on tonight about how this coming Tuesday, we're going to get the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing kicked off. That race, it's a long one. It's going to be a good one, but it's only 100 laps. We still have 104 laps to go. You've got a whole race still in it with the 18 drivers that are left on the lead lap. So normally with 4 laps to go, you would be thinking about how do I kind of use this guy to my advantage? And you got to work together, but at the end of the day, you still want to beat the other guy out. So, you have to find a way to get around somebody. Now I think that everybody should be focused on being civil with each other and finding partners. And the good news is, despite the fact that we've seen a lot of guys up inside of the lead pack right now come from way back that weren't a part of the conversation in that first 40-lap stint, I think that these guys are relatively familiar with each other at this point. It's a relatively close-knit group of that 14-car lead pack. You got to decide, are we all coming in at once? 14 cars down pit road? Are we going to see a couple of guys break off in 4 or 5 at a time? Those discussions are ongoing at the moment, and we could be seeing guys down pit road in the next 3 laps.
Perhaps you saw just a little bit of smoke that last lap coming out of corner number 4. That was Tyler Laughtlin's engine had let go. You can see just try to fire it up right now in pit lane, that 35 car, but nope, that is still a fog machine of smoke. So that's, I think Tyler Laughtlin's day is done, which really it was done after that incident anyways, so certainly won't be circulating after that one. But you know what, that is the first engine that I've seen go, but at the same time, that was pretty significantly damaged from that incident, so it really shouldn't be any surprise at all when the engine grenades itself. But for the rest of this group here, everyone seems to be very good at managing, very nice and comfortable out there here at Daytona. And I keep seeing Brian Blackford. He's nice and comfortable behind Justin Bolton. He's stayed behind this rest of this pack, and really has pretty much all of the cars in this front group does have a chance of really being there towards the end. But we don't really know where we're going to be at once this pit stop happens. Once it does, for all we know, somebody could just bowling ball into the cars in front. You never know when it comes to pit stops, especially when it's the first. At this point, you would be comfortable with the drivers around you and the pit stops they're about to make. This time, well, it's going to be pretty much unforeign territory, uncharted territory, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it makes pit road a busy place when all these guys are trying to figure out who's going when. Teammates, if you have any that are up inside this top group, when you come out of pit, you don't want to pit by yourself. You end up doing that, it's going to be a long rest of the day for you. So you got to make that decision. You got to try to figure it out. You got to find out who your friends are. You got to figure out what laps you're going to come in on as well, too. So these guys have a lot to think about over the next probably 10 or so laps here before they decide to finally make that call to come down pit road. And we'll see who will be the first ones to do that here. As you see a couple guys on the outside lane there, the 11 and the 27, still deciding to run up on that high side, get a little air to the nose, but at the same time, starting to lose grip here and starting to lose traction with that top group. The top 5 starting to pull away just a bit and kind of split this group in half.
Lap number 100 in the works and now complete. We are at the halfway point in the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500, and we are awaiting drivers to come down pit road for the first time. Would be under green flag racing conditions on the night. We'll see if they decide to trickle down to the pit lane this time, off in 3 and 4. The lead pack remains at 14 cars deep. We were talking about Brian Blackford trying to hang on a couple of laps ago. He's looking pretty good at the moment. In fact, battling side by side for 13th with Justin Bolton. There are only 3 drivers on the lead lap, not on the lead pack. It's Patrick Mallett, Aaron Lincolns, and Alex Berger on 15th, 16th, and 17th position. That time by, though, nobody decided to come down. Let's take this opportunity to take a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the premier online racing game with professionally sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and many more. Ryan Luza is your race leader at the moment, trailed by Taylor Hurst and Zach Novak. Inside of the top 3, Dylan Jones and Jacob Harberts 4th and 5th. Colton Davis from 35th, your biggest mover, runs in 6th position. Blake Reynolds just behind him in 7th. Pole sitter Chris Shearburn is 8th. Dylan Duvall is 9th, and a top 10 starter Chad Lawton holds P10 at the moment.
In the number 11th position is the number 22, Ryan Lowe, of course, as he started 33rd and starting 34th. Well, Robbie Varble Jr., he's in 12th. Brian Blackford, he's hovering at the back of this pack right now with Justin Bolton. They're in 13th and 14th, respectively, and that's really it for your front-running pack. You've got 3 loose runners on their own, currently not 1 lap down. That's Patrick Mallett, Aaron Likens, and Alex Bergeron. And then you're going to go back to Braden Bolus. He is currently on pit road on his own. He is 1 lap down. Nicholas Morris, one of the running wounded, as well as Jake Nichols, as we're starting to see cars come down pit road.
Pit stops underway just as we were kind of expecting to happen, and the top guys are dropping down. Ryan Luza going to be on pit road. The 8 of Taylor Hurst coming in hot on the inside. Might just get nailed with a speeding penalty. It was close, Andy.
Yeah, it was close for a lot of these guys coming down there, but did a great job. Everybody did getting onto pit road without any incident. You come in there 2-3 wide sometimes. Sometimes you can miss your pit box as well, too. A lot of communication has to go through. Looks like the 5, actually, and Novak slid through his box and to back up just a little bit, so that's going to cost him a little bit of time here as they get set to get their 4 tires, come back out on the racetrack, and it looks like they're going to come out. How about 4 or 5 wide off of pit road? Oh. That's an exit right there if I've ever seen one.
And interestingly enough, they got off of pit road a lot easier than they got on, still 3 wide as they try to get up to speed. We've got these guys 3 wide in the corner. Colton Davis on the outside, Blake Reynolds in the middle, and I think Dylan Duvall is going to win up because he was on the bottom lane of the racetrack, 3 wide, exiting pit road at lap 104.
Now that was surprisingly clean on the exit as the cars are coming up to speed right now. Dylan C. Jones, he seems to be the last man, the front-running car, but he seems to be a sitting duck right now. He's going to be the last man because everyone else was able to make it happen, get that momentum rolling. Dylan Duvall is going to be the one who has got that momentum. Blake Reynolds is following. Colton Davis, a good pit stop from him. Dylan C. Jones finally sliding in right now. There's a couple of good pit stops from some of these cars. I think probably the biggest loser right now is Zach Novak. That slide we were talking about in his pit stall, that is almost, I'm going to say almost, very close to being out of the draft range if he is not careful. They're going to go past Ryan Lowe, and they are going to catch Chris Shearburn at some point, as well as Alex Bergeron. Bergeron has not pitted yet. Chris Shearburn has, but where you know what's going to happen, Andy, is that this train of cars here, you've got 10, 15 stock cars all working in the draft together. They're going to blow by this car, by Chris Shearburn. He is going to be pretty much hurting pretty much all the way to the back of the pack.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He's actually getting a little bit of help right now from the lap down machine, Alex Bergeron on that 14. You can see that group right now. They were all up to speed, all in a line. You can see him now moving to the high side here. So Chris Shearburn definitely going to get freight trained right here. You can see the 32, Dylan Jones, trying to get a draft off the 14, trying to stay with these top three here as they work their way back into turn number 3. You're talking about the 5, losing the draft on that pit stop because of that slide. Well, how about Ryan Luza? All the way back right now, showing in that 10th spot on the racetrack. That was not the pit stop he wanted either. Came in pit road in that first top spot and ultimately lost a bunch on pit road. So now he's got to work his way back to the front. He's doing just that, though. Outside lane with the 17. They're catching up to Dylan Jones now into 1.
In that outside lane with a little bit of newfound life, trying to get something to go, and then they are led by that 32. And Jones, a little bit of a accordion effect that time off of the corner. These guys really saw that snake kind of move down the line as everybody trying to get everybody kind of lined back up on each other's bumpers. It worked out. The 30 of Chad Lawton thinks that it's time to go. He'll give up his sanctuary of the inside of the racetrack. He'll go to the top side. 4 drivers up top, and now 5. Ryan Blackford kind of half committed, and the 30 to the inside. Those guys can't decide who's going to go where. It almost ended badly, and it ends up without the 15 on the outside and the 30 back down.
That was mostly a miscommunication. I don't think these guys were trying to be that racy, but here we go anyways. As that second line now, everybody seems to have gotten their tires. That second line now is coming in as they're now working on the outside. Dylan C. Jones, he's going to be back. He will recover, and he's now finally secured on the outside. Blake Reynolds, the number 11 car, he did start in 32nd. He's up in second right now. He has been in this main pack pretty much in 8th, 9th, 10th position pretty much this entire race once they got through that first running debacle. And I gotta say, this is the first time he's up here, so we'll see what he does. As we are cycling once again, new fresh faces. Dylan Duval up front, Blake Reynolds is right there as well, and we're seeing these new faces that were mid-packers. Now we're gonna see how these guys handle leading this pack.
Doing a great job now getting around that lap traffic. How about the run on the outside? Dylan Jones with the help from the 17 to Jacob Herberts and Ryan Luza. That's going to give the 32 to lead now into turn number 3. He'll drop to the bottom now right in front of Dylan Duval. And now the 2 Dylans will line up 1-2 on the bottom lane. Kills the momentum on the top side, but Luza, he's not done yet. He wants back to the lead. He's going to stay on that back bumper and give that 17 an opportunity now.
Everybody wants to have a chance to get up to the point, and that 17 now going to be left really in control of the top spot as he tries to do what we saw Dylan Jones do. A good 3 wide again. The number 7 this time, the driver who's going to be put an additional lap down. That is now negative 10 for Garrett Lowe, who runs in the 24th position. There were a couple of stragglers who were on the lead lap but not a part of this lead pack that we noted right before we came down to the pit lane. They have all essentially now lost that lead lap status and are no longer a factor. There's 15 drivers on the lead lap. The one driver who did lose touch with the lead pack through the trip down to the pit lane was Taylor Hurst, who is 14th but 23 seconds off. He's all on his lonesome. Patrick Mallock was one of the drivers who was 40-some odd seconds behind before these guys came down to the pit lane. So very shortly, the now 12-driver lead pack is going to be all that's left. Because you're talking about a 10 to 15 mile-an-hour difference between being in the draft or not, and Dylan Duval gets the shove by the 2 and goes to the point.
And just looking back with Zach Novak, he has basically lost the entirety of the draft, and he is going to be losing massively lap after lap. He was about 2 seconds slower that last lap just because of how the effect of the draft was working. So Zach Novak is going to be in trouble because of that green flag pit stop, and that is certainly an important skill. Being able to get that car throttled down, getting the exit good. Dylan Duval, though, he crosses the start-finish line starting lap 112. He's got a fairly decent spot and situation here on the inside. He's got Dylan C. Jones on the bottom with him. It seems like everyone's working fairly good together, and we're actually going to see Blake Reynolds. He dips down now. Chris Shearburn, though, he did not get freight trained. I thought that he would be cycled all the way back to the pack, but he ended up catching up to getting the draft in one of the corners, so he has now secured himself in 5th position. So I have to say, Andy, overall, very good pit stop from everybody, except for, of course, Zach Novak. He's going to be feeling that, but everything else seems to have gone fairly well.
Yeah, one mistake. That's all it was, a slide through the pit stall. That's going to cost him a lot of time here. He's found a partner, at least somebody to work with. It's lap down machine, David Washington, but the problem for him, it's still going to continue to knock the lap times down. He's just not going to go down as quickly as if he would by himself. Up front, though, everybody single file now, working their way around some more lap traffic. You got to go all the way back to about 8th spot until you see the 17 of Jacob Herberts, who's pulled out to the outside. He's got the help of Brian Blackford. They'll try to make a run on the outside off turn 4.
Yeah, that outside lane exists, but it is quite far back. In fact, they're going to go 3 wide off of quarter number 4 that time as everybody tries to make enough space to get on through. The driver way up top, that 37 of Patrick Mallet, now just did lose his lead lap status. So we are left with 14 drivers on the lead lap. Another driver who lost his lead lap, or rather his lead pack running after that cycle green flag pit stops was Zach Novak. Novak and Hurst still on the lead lap, still in the top 14, but we knew that there had to be a couple of cars, at least somebody, who would lose touch with the lead pack, maybe by a self-inflicted error on the cycle green flag pit stops this time by. It happened to be Novak and Hurst, which again tightens up the field to just 12 drivers on the lead lap. We go 3 wide again up front. The 17 of Jacob Herberts, the only driver on the outside of the racetrack right now. I'm not sure he really wants to be up there. There's just no hole on the inside to dive down to at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just trying to sort yourself out. I think we're comfortable once again in a single file line. It took us probably 10 laps after that green flag start to that green flag pit stop, restarting a stint, of course, to really settle it back down. I thought we were going to see a bit more 2 wide action here. I think people are fairly comfortable with their positions right now. Dylan Duval, I'm sure he's enjoying being up front, leading the iRacing Daytona 500. But it just, everyone's sorting themselves out. There's a little bit of a 2 wide line. Brian Blackford is once again trying that outside line, but it's just a matter of trying to find the right people. Jacob Herberts and Patrick Mallet are behind him, but I'm not sure. That's a mighty train he's going to have to pick off.
Definitely is. A couple lap down machines right there in that mix. The 18 of Aaron Likens, Patrick Mallet, who just went down a lap as well, too. They find themselves at the tail end of this lead pack, in the draft at least, so at least they know they won't be going down another lap at this point. A caution would help them get themselves back on the lead lap. Up top, though, still Blackford trying to get that run on the outside. Slowly but surely, they're picking up a car. At least a couple every other lap here, so Blackford in the 17 of Herberts. Herberts, they're making a great job up here. Look at Colton Davis now peeking to the outside. It's going to slow up the momentum just a bit, but it's going to give them 3 cars, and they're going to give them a lot of momentum here. They're trying to work their way back up to the front here in turns number 1 and 2.
The charge on the outside exists, but it has been struggling to get a little bit further towards the front of the field. The 11, somebody who looks like he's thinking about it. Actually, Blake Reynolds, he'll go with the 2 of Ryan Luza this time. They'll both go to the outside of the racetrack just like that. The fight is back on. It does look like Reynolds has a little bit of back-end damage. Looks like it's pretty much squared up on the back bumper of that number 11 Ford Fusion. Just something to keep an eye on. It might cause a little bit of a headache for somebody trying to push him, but at the moment he is the pusher on the back bumper of Luza, who I think is going to get lap 117. He did by just 1/100th of a second that time by.
And Blake Reynolds, he's now looking as he's pretty safe on that outside line right now. It looks like the outside's got a pretty fair run right now, and if they keep going, perhaps Luza can recover the lead from Dylan Duval after that great pit stop from Dylan Duval. Just looking at the timing, I mean, Dylan Duval's was, it wasn't even that quick of a pit stop, but his lane was so much faster, his entry and his exit, than the rest of the people around him, so that's why Dylan Duval was able to jump so much. Now, I mean, look at where it's got him. He's at the front of the pack right now. He's enjoying it. Across the start-finish line, it's going to go to Ryan Michaeluza, but on the outside, will he come across to the inside? I'm sure he might. Will Blake Reynolds try to follow it? Oh, so very close. They make a touch. Wiggle once, wiggle twice. Dylan Duval is around. He has collected Shearburn, and now they are packing it up on the exit of corner number 2.
It was a 12-car lead to pack, and that's a lot of them.
Oh, that's over half of them right there. The 32 of Dylan Jones involved. The 4 was involved. A couple of the lap down machines involved as well that were at the tail end of that pack too, Evan. That was just absolutely crazy right there for these drivers. And just one move. We talk about it all the time, every single race. One move, one small little hiccup, and that's going to cause a wreck like that. And that's exactly what it was. Blake Reynolds thought he was clear, tried to move down, cuts the nose right off of that 3, and melee resumes after that.
For as many times as we've seen that move work, I think it was inevitable for it to not work, and the 11 just wasn't clear. Blake Reynolds following the 2 Ryan Luza down, and I mean, just got contact with that 3, and looked like maybe for a split second there Dylan Duval might have had it, but as you saw on the RaceSpotTV replay, as we take a look at a couple of different angles of that one, he stepped it back up the hill, and he was on the inside of the side-by-side, and it really had no hopes of trying to hang on to that one. And as it seems to be many of the time in Super Speedway Racing Cam, the driver who initiates the contact is the one who is able to drive away, and the carnage is from there on back. That took out a good percentage of the race leaders that were left in this race.
Yeah, and just looking at the live pictures, trying to pick up where people are picking up the pieces. Yeah, Blake Reynolds, I mean, when I saw him coming down, I didn't think that there was going to be enough room. If there was, it was just not going to, it was going to stifle all of the momentum. And Dylan Duval, if he had a little bit more space, he very well could have saved it. He was doing a very good job of walking it up the track, but once he started losing that speed, he really clipped both Dylan C. Jones and Colton Davis at the same time. So even if one of those cars wasn't there, they would have still had that accident. And then, of course, Shearburn just finished off the driver door. But once they started wrecking, there's only so much you could do. Pretty much everybody involved in that one. Brian Blackford involved, Chad Lawton, Aaron Likens, Jacob Herberts, Justin Bolton, Patrick Mallet. Basically everybody minus 3 or 4 are now carrying at least a somewhat damage. There's a lot of cars on pit lane right now.
Yeah, a lot of drivers trying to get that damage fixed, whatever they can get fixed here, to hopefully salvage a decent finish in this one here tonight. Still 80 laps plus for these guys to get it done. Lots of time, but it's going to dwindle it down quite a bit. I mean, right now just showing 12 drivers on the lead lap, a whole bunch of them involved in that one, already a lap down right now, and it's wow, it's just unbelievable. It doesn't take much. We saw it right there, Evan. Just one little bobble. That's all it takes. Big jump for a lot of these drivers here, and you know what? An opportunity out the window as far as winning the Daytona 500 here tonight. So a lot of those guys having a great run, and just, you know, you think you just got to take it easy, and just like that, one little slip up, and that's it.
I think that we kind of all knew there was going to have to be a point in time in this race where these guys started to get a little bit more aggressive with each other and, you know, stop giving each other space. And quite honestly, you know, take a little more than what you're going to give. And I think that those first accidents, Andy, as we had kind of noted, just racing incidents, you know, a couple of guys get together, close quarters racing, somebody gets just a little bit out of shape, and you know, everything breaks loose. And that one could kind of fall into the same category in regards to the fact that if Duval was on the outside, we probably would have been okay. Problem was, though, it just happened so close to the front of the field that everybody was right there, really had no opportunity to get by it. And because it was right off of the cycle of pit service, everybody kind of woke up a little bit, and they were a little bit more aggressive than they were being prior to the pit stop, and it's an unfortunate deal. But that move by the 11, it's an aggressive late race move. Now, there's still 78 laps to go as of the next time by. It's a lot of time left in this race, but I think we are kind of getting to that point now where these guys are going to start to put those elbows up and get going. People who came down to the pit lane this time came in with 80 laps to go. I was talking about how that pit stop at 60 kind of threw us off of our fuel number. You can split these next 80 some odd laps in half. So if we are to go green, we're lined right back up on the strategy with one pit stop left, if that happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously with the cars dwindling as far as the lead lap, we got a couple of drivers that are poised to get the lap back. The 18, one of them there, Aaron Likens, who had just lost a lap. Alex Bergeron looks like he'll get a wave around back on the lead lap as well, too. So we might still end up with 14 cars in the lead lap, but a lot of those with damage. So it also puts to the fact, too, with the amount of drivers actually left in this race here. You know, it's going to be to the point maybe an eight car pack, maybe 10 tops that we're going to see with the opportunity here to win this thing. And every little accident like that, now it's going to put the pressure on these guys to not make those moves like that. And, you know, and I think the 11, I think the move was, hey, I think I'm clear. I got to get down there, because in his mind, he doesn't want to get stuck on that outside lane by himself. He had no help. He had no help behind him. So that was the mentality. And, you know, was it a bad move? I don't think so. I think, you know, at the point of the race, or when you're in the car and you're doing this, you're not thinking there's 80 laps left. You're thinking, I got to get to the bottom because I don't want to lose the draft. And I think right there, that's all it was. And just a racing deal, a mistake. It happens, and you know what? They'll line them back up here as they get set to do that all the way around. Let's get sent around the pace car.
Question is now, who's left in this race? Because we had, again, well, there were 20 cars. 21, I think, was the number when we went back green at about lap 60. And by the time we had gone through a 40-lap run, you know, gotten to the end of that cycle of green flag pit stops and gotten through, the guys who had just kind of eventually started to lose ground on everybody in the lead pack had kind of dwindled away, and we were at 12 drivers in the lead pack. Well, a good number of them just got taken out of that one, so there's not a lot of cars left. You got Luza, Blake Reynolds, Ryan Lowe, Robbie Vrabel Jr., Zach Novak, Taylor Hurst, Patrick Mallet, and that's it as far as guys without damage. There's guys with damage out there, but 8 drivers. And 8 drivers are still going to be able to battle this out for the win. You could have 40 drivers in the race. There could, you know, be 8 drivers who have a realistic shot at winning it. So I don't think it's going to affect our ability to get an exciting finish here. But what will change is the dynamic of this race. Because, again, up to this point, we've seen, for the most part, a lot of guys in the lead pack. We've been too wide. It's been thick traffic. Only 8 guys out there battling with each other. Cam leaves a lot of space on the track for these guys to dance around with each other with and kind of get creative, and that changes how this race will be run out to the end as we get set to go back green.
Yeah, and it is going to go to the left foot, the right foot of Ryan Michael Luza, as the field is now coming through as Blake Reynolds and Ryan Michael Luza start their way through now, starting on lap number 125. So we're only going to have 75 to go, or actually 76 to go. Already Blake Reynolds chops down to the inside line. He wants to get out of the outside, as the rest of the field is now slowly trying to work their way in. It is going to leave Robbie Vrabel Jr. and Taylor Hurst on the outside, and you're just talking about how the positioning is going to go. There's enough cars to continue to keep that outside line rolling, and I have a feeling they're going to try to continue to keep that outside line rolling, but at some point, though, there's going to get to so few of cars, so few of momentum, where people are going to have to start getting creative, and I wouldn't be too surprised if off the exit of 2 we don't see some people peeking a nose, that pushing car peek a nose to that double yellow line, even though you can't go underneath it, but try to force that front-running car just a little bit out of whack and try to get by him on the inside.
With all the carnage and the caution, how about the guys that it affected the most? And I'm not saying the guys that got in the accident, but how about the 5? Zach Novak, Taylor Hurst, those guys found themselves out of this thing as we ran with the mistake on pit road. Well, they got second life now here for the 5, as you see him 4th in line. You see Taylor Hurst now running 5th. So those drivers, a second opportunity for him, and maybe a gift for him there with that accident happening when it did, and they were not even anywhere remotely close to it. And those drivers still clean cars, puts them back in contention here now, as we got just about a 7-car pack here. As looks like the 3 of Dylan Duvall, a little bit too much damage on that 3 machine. He's going to not be able to keep up with the draft here. He's going to fall out of it. It's going to leave 7 of them now, single file, back in 1.
There are still those other guys again on the racetrack, not a part of the lead pack. In fact, there's still 12 cars on the lead lap. Guys outside of the top 7, those guys with damage. Dylan Duvall is 8th, Chris Shearburn is 9th, and it looks like as well Braden Brolos in 10th, and then Justin Bolton and Aaron Likens 11th and 12th position. Again, those back 5 running with damage. I don't see any reason, in all honesty, and it might be somewhat disappointing to hear, Cam, but I don't see any reason why these guys in the top 7 go side by side. At least until we get to lap 160, get through the pit stop, get to the end of the race, and okay, then those track position moves are going to start to make sense. But I think with this many cars left, you're going to need help. And I think it's kind of funny with 7 guys out there that one guy might get left on his own. There's going to be one lane that has an advantage, the way that they run it right now. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if nobody makes a move to the outside for the next 36, 7 laps of this race, because they need to get to that final pit stop to get to the end of the race. Now, based on what we've been seeing tonight, again, guys have been able to, I think, very well strike a balance between taking it easy, conserving the race cars, although you look and you see 7 guys in the lead pack, you wouldn't think so, but I think that nobody's really been exactly over their head and going crazy tonight. They've been doing a good job of finding the fine line between keeping the cars together and still having some fun racing side by side. But as you see, these top 7 without the damage pull away very quickly from the rest of those guys who are just kind of hanging out on the lead lap. I would see no reason why these top 7 do anything for the next 40 laps. I think the objective should be to get through that final pit stop, get through it cleanly, and then you guys can start to race it out for the Daytona 500 win.
Absolutely, and of course, just a quick update with the weather temperatures. It's still 80 degrees in the air, still 102 on the ground, so nothing's changing there. So this is going to be a fairly straight run here. The weather doesn't really change that much, which is not that surprising. It is Florida, for goodness sake. But it is something that I think the spotters and engineers do keep their eyes on. But, yeah, just looking at how they're looking to set this up, I think I keep seeing Ryan Luza. I think he's just trying to keep it loose, just trying to keep himself focused there. He keeps letting the wheel go a little bit off of the exit of 2, wiggling a little bit going down the straight. But Blake Reynolds, he keeps covering the inside. Everyone else, though, they're just staying on that inside line. Yeah, there's no real reason, unless you're trying to test something out. You're trying to see who would go with you, or trying to cool your engine, which of course is a worrisome thing to do, especially if you're back there where Patrick Mallet and Robbie Vrabel is, because what'll happen, you'll lose that draft. You're going to be completely on your lonesome. There is another pack to be mindful of. Dylan Duvall is leading it right now. He's in 8th position, currently being with Chris Shearburn and a couple of other cars, but most of these guys are in all sorts of different lap downs. Some are 1 lap, some are 2 laps, I think, down, but it is a very sprinkled group, and the fastest they can go is 196, which is not going to hold a candle to the 202 mile an hour that the lead pack's doing, but still another pack to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and you got to remember, too, when we had about 20 or 25 cars in that lead pack as well, too, that speed heading into turn number 3 down that back straightaway, it was hitting 205, and this last time by, they were just barely getting to 200. So you can see the difference also with just the amount of cars that are left in this group, too. As you see some action moving up to the high side. It's 8, Taylor Hurst. He's got a little bit of help there from Robbie Vrabel. Getting it done now on the outside, making a pretty good run now through 1 and 2. And too much longer here. You're going to see him battling for the race lead. How about it? Off turn number 2 and down the back straightaway.
Those guys get to try to mount up something. Again, somebody has to have a disadvantage in the strength of the numbers, and it looks like it might be the guy's top side. The 5 kind of thinking about it, won't commit either way, and it looks like Zach Novak now has to go down to the inside. The 8 to 26 going to get stuck up on the outside of the racetrack. The good news is for going topside and really having only a maximum of 5 cars on your inside is, if it doesn't work out for you, you're not going to get stuck on the outside and fall back outside of the top 15, unlike some of the guys who we saw that happen to earlier on in the night. So there is that way you can look at it that can, if you want, in a way, talk yourself into being more aggressive, going to the outside and giving it a try. I think that the 8 might get a run. I don't think the 8 will get to the top spot, because I think if he gets a good enough charge, that 11 might go with him. We'll see.
Yeah, and of course you got to see what Blake Reynolds is going to do, as everything is really hinging on that second position guy, Blake Reynolds, that number 11, that purple and white car, which I have to say, pretty easy to pick out of that group, and you're carrying that purple color. Purple, you don't normally see that on a stock car, but he's making it look fairly good in that Ford Fusion, and that car is the linchpin right now. If he pushes Ryan Luza very well and very consistently, that second line, it's near impossible to really get by unless you've got a full train. But now you look at it, and you've got 2 cars. You've got Taylor Hurst and Robbie Vrabel Jr., and that's it. And it is good to see. This is a good thing to note, though. Zach Novak, because of this, he's right back up in there, and that is a good thing to see for him, obviously. We would appreciate it if the rest of the field was still with us, but, for Zach, he's able to recover and get back in here. He didn't go a lap down. That's a good thing to see. And so we're just going to continue the lap after lap. I am surprised that second line has been able to stay up there as long as they have. Perhaps they're just taking it easy on their tires more than anything else, or letting the car kind of relax a little bit up there, hang up there, and then when the guys on the inside line tire out, see where you can go.
Yeah, and you got to be careful, too, if you're the 37 right now. Patrick Mallet able to get back on the lead lap. Oh, we have a caution out, and it's going to be somewhere deeper in the field. Some of the lap down machines having an issue here on this one. We'll try to figure out who exactly it was, but it looks like, I don't know, somewhere down there.
It looked like the number 10 Ford was in a side-by-side fight, running in 27th. It wasn't for position. He was back with the lead lap cars that were damaged. They were running about 9 seconds off of the top spot. There was a little bit of 3 wide, and something happened to the 28 machine, who was in the middle of 3 wide. He just lost that car, and it just broke sideways in the center of the pack, and there was bad news for Rattler on the inside, because Moore snapped down the hill, went back up the track, caught David Washington, and a very unfortunate accident for those guys off in 1 and 2, well behind the battle for the race lead, and again, a battle that wasn't necessarily a rough one at the moment, brings out a caution at 135.
Yeah, and this just settles everybody back in. Now, this actually brings in a very interesting question. Who goes with 2 tires? Everyone is probably, you can't make it more than 40 laps, and there's more than enough for that. So some people might go for just 2 tires. I wouldn't be too surprised to see what they do. But at the same time, Andy, there's really no reason to go for 2 tires, because if everyone takes 4, you're still in the same 7-car pack.
Yeah, exactly. It's right now at this point, it's just stay there. So you're one of those 7 guys that can break away from the pack as they head down pit road for their stop. You're one of those guys. You gotta it doesn't really matter at this point. Get your 4 tires. Make sure you pack that thing full of fuel. You could even come down with 1 to go. Make sure you have enough fuel if you really wanted to. But there's no reason to try anything different at this point. You're not going to make up anything except a couple positions. But you can do that once you hit the green flag once again. So for these drivers now, it's just it's straight up 4 tires. Pack that thing full of fuel. Get back out on the racetrack, and hopefully keep the thing straight and keep yourself in position to get a win.
They get a peel out of the pit lane that time, led by Ryan Luza, Blake Reynolds, Zach Novak, Ryan Lowe, Patrick Mallet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 off of pit road. Robbie Vrabel Jr. and it looks like Braden Boulos, the top 7. Although a couple of those guys, again, I would assume, based on how those cars look out on the racetrack, would be coming back down pit road, trying to get the rest of them fixed up as the night continues to go on. But we're going to catch back up to the pace car, and somebody just lost an engine down the back straightaway. I think David Rattler's just lost it on the 23.
Well, David Rattler, I believe, was directly involved with that. He's actually parked on the bus stop. This is not the road course, though. The Daytona 24 was last month. But yeah, for David Rattler, unfortunate to see that. Another one of our pro drivers here in the top split for the iRacing Daytona 500, his Ford Fusion. We're going to call it for that day. He's climbed out of that number 23. So, you know what? It's better for it to go now under caution than under green flag and around other racing cars. So it's unfortunate that his day ends like that, but probably the safest thing.
Yep, definitely the safest thing. Just get off the track, call it a day, cut your losses where they are, and move on to the next one. Get another opportunity possibly before the end of this Daytona 500 weekend. You got a couple more days, a couple more opportunities for these drivers, whether it's fixed or in the open session, to get maybe another, to get a 500 win before this thing's all said and done. So it is what it is. Cut your losses, move on to the next one here. But we're going to have an interesting restart here, the 3-car. How about Dylan Duvall with that damage? Right now being shown as your race leader, so we'll see how long he can stay up there. Maybe get a little bit of help from these guys, maybe a push, and maybe he might just have enough horsepower to keep it up in that group.
Rattler is going to try to get that car fixed, although if it was an engine loss, I don't think there's going to be much that the 23 Ford can do. But he is back down pit road nonetheless. Other guys who were sitting on pit road, Nick Morse is down there. We were just talking about him involved in an accident. And then Garrett Lowe's down there is 25th and 29 laps down. For the most part, everybody who's still going to work in a race car is out on the racetrack. There aren't a lot of guys pit side still trying to actively get damaged fixed. Your race leader, Dylan Duvall, in the 3 barely has a back bumper on that 3 Chevrolet. Curious if he's going to be due back to pit road, or if he's actually going to stay out here and try to lead this race with that damage. He did come down pit road already, took fuel and 2 tires, so the 3 does look pretty beat up, though, front and back end damage.
Yeah, that car is obviously not going to be able to carry the speed that it once did. That is actually, I mean, he took an impact directly on his door. They managed to stretch that all out, but once the cars started piling up, that number 3 car did not hold up well at all. So the pace lights, I believe, are going to go out this time by on that Ford Mustang, which, as they cross the start-finish line, they do. So either way, we'll see what happens here. We'll see who tries what, and if somebody's not predicting that a caution might, well, breed a caution.
Well, we got an opportunity for that with the 3 car with the damage staying out there up in the front. But I think these guys, being the pros that they are, top split, they'll be able to get out of the way and maneuver their way around that 3 car. But hey, why not? Getting some TV time, right? Some sponsored plugs there for that driver getting there. Up there leading this race late in the going here with just over 60 laps to go. So why not stay up there, see what happens. And like I said, sometimes the damage looks worse than it is when you get into a pack and when you're in the draft. If you got some guys helping you, giving you a decent push, so a lot of times you can end up staying up there. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be awfully quick work. That top side's probably going to be the first time we're going to see them have the advantage on this restart.
I'm curious what that 11's going to do, because Blake Reynolds is grading up behind the control car for the restart, that 3 of Dylan Duvall. The majority of Dylan Duvall's damage is on the back end. Now, he has front end damage, and I think he needs to kind of keep a half eye on his digital dash and keep an eye on those temperatures, but that's not a flat bumper to give a push to. The big topic of conversation, what now feels like forever ago, when we first got these Gen 6 Cup cars on the service, was that the bumpers don't line up nice and perfectly. You do have to be much more careful when you're pushing. You got to lose a lot more finesse to get the job done. That 3 has got a lot of sandpaper on the back end of his bumper. We will see if at all he could be pushed by the 11 on the inside of the racetrack. Pace car going to duck off and away. The drivers that remain will take 62 laps to go from Daytona. Back at it again, and they're on each other.
Dylan Duvall, that inside line. Blake Reynolds, he is now directly behind. And of course, Blake Reynolds was the one that nipped him before, so we'll see how that works out. But so far, Dylan, everyone seems to be accelerating finally behind him right now. But once we get to the super straight back here in the backstretch, I wouldn't be surprised if people don't start either going 3 wide around him, or at least that outside line starts getting a very good run through it as Ryan Michaeluza, he's staying easy on the outside. Zach Novak is following him. Patrick Mallet will hopefully be trying to stay behind. I'm not quite sure, Andy, if these guys are going to be working to go to the inside line or if they're going to stay on the outside line and hoping to get around Dylan Duvall.
You're going to have to get a hold to get down to the bottom, but I'm awfully surprised that 3 car. Just like I said, though, you get some help behind you. A lot of times you can be able to keep up the speed here. Obviously, the speed's still just cresting over 200 miles an hour. You can see the hole opened up. The 5, Zach Novak moved to the bottom, leaves Luza out there by himself. He does have a little bit of a gap. He can get in behind that 26 of Robbie Vrabel, but it's going to take him a moment here, and hopefully the hole doesn't close by the time the 19 gets there. So we'll see exactly like that. But how about that? The 3, Dylan Duvall. Well, he proved us all wrong right there. Thought he was going to go straight to the back, but he continues to lead now off turn 4.
Got the 5 of Zach Novak taking a look to the outside, seeing if somebody wants to go with him. So far, nobody bites. The 26 of Vrabel to the bumper, but he will just use that to slot back to the inside and kind of make sure the 5 doesn't have a lane to drop back down into. Now Ryan Luza going to go to the outside of the racetrack, making it side by side and trying to get 2 drivers up there. Interestingly enough, we gained a car for the last time we were under green flag conditions. We only had 7 guys up here at that point. We got 10 in the lead pack at the moment. A couple of guys towards the back working with damage. Alex Bergeron, one of them with some right front damage on his number 14 Chevrolet. But interestingly enough, that last yellow added 3 more cars to the lead pack.
Yeah, well, hey, there we go. Well, let's get 5 or 6 more cautions, and we'll have a full field once again, I guess. The crews, I think, they get enough time with the hammer, they get enough time with the tape, they get these cars running once again. This whole pack's running over 200, so that is a very good thing to see. So at least everybody should be hanging around with each other now. But Dylan Duvall, yeah, he's running 197, 196 right now. That outside line now is going to shoot right on by Zach Novak. He's not wasting his time. He's probably going to dip right across the nose of Dylan Duvall. He's going to take that lead in the number 5. And that he is in his Toyota Tundra. Well, actually, his Toyota Tundra. Oh my goodness. If that was out there doing 200, we would be having issues. His Toyota Camry, I have to say.
That's not going to pass tech.
It's no. Smokey Unic would be very impressed if it did. Zach Novak and his Camry, though, he's made the wrong decision, and he is now cycling back with Dylan Duvall.
Yeah, he didn't have any help at all, and drove down to the bottom like that in front of that 3 without the help and without the push and without the power that 3 doesn't have, without any cars behind him. You see Dylan Duvall now finally getting ganged up on here. He'll go start dropping to the back of this pack here, all the way back to the 19 of Chris Shearburn. Here's the 37. Patrick Mallet gets around him. Well, maybe not quite here. So it looks like 3 and 4, but up front, a new leader. How about Robbie Vrabel Jr. looking to lead his first lap of the 500. Now it's the 11. No, I thought he was going to try to squeeze down in front of the 5 like he did earlier on. He's going to stay to the top side now, and Luza moves up there trying to get some draft. Not going to happen. He'll drop back down, single file back into 1.
Those guys towards the back of the lead pack here trying to hang on and maintain connection. Dylan Duvall very quickly has ended up in that number 7 position after everybody disposed of him without even having to force him up out of line. They did so on the outside of the racetrack. He's back in 7th. Looks like he's getting a good suck up to the back of Blake Reynolds. Not going to drop all the way back, but those same 7 or so suspects from the last run are now trying to stretch this group apart, get away. And I guess for them, it's better the less cars that are in the fight because you at least feel like you're going to have a little bit more control over the situation if you can count the amount of drivers in the lead pack on your 2 hands. Speaking of the 2, Ryan Luza back to the outside of the racetrack. Zach Novak going to follow him as well. At least he's thinking about it. We'll go side by side off of quarter number 2. The 5 not close enough to the bumper, though, I think, to make a meaningful run.
Well, they're going down the back stretch right past the bus stop for the Daytona 24. They're going right into corner number 3, 204 miles an hour for Robbie Vrabel Jr. and that number 26 car. And, I think, he's definitely going to lead lap. I was going to say, I think they might have got to shoot at least to make it through the tri-oval, but nope, that's just not what's going to happen. Taylor Hurst, he's pushing too strong for the rear of that Chevy, a pair of Chevys versus that Ford and Toyota Interloper. as the only other Ford in this group is Blake Reynolds. So the Chevy's the predominant car in this front pack. But for Robbie Rabel and Taylor Hurst, they've got it on lockdown right now.
Well, friends, for Dylan Duvall falling off the pack here just about over a second, if not more now, so working their way back into turn number 3. The battle for the lead heating up, though, on the outside, because here comes Ryan Luza with the help. How about that? 4 cars strong against 2 on the top side. And we'll see who has the advantage now as they come across the start-finish line. Looks like Ryan Luza might have a slight advantage, a little bit of help. It's going to be a close one there. He does get the advantage for the time being. It's strength in numbers. That's what's going to prevail in the long run here, and right now the top side has him.
He's just got to stay on him through the quarter. He's just right there on the edge. He needs to use the runoff for the bank it attitude to get the job done. The 26 got some of that momentum back in the center of the quarter. Down the Daytona super stretch they go. Can the 2 get a little bit of a shot? Novak to the bumper that time, and he will get the job done. New race leader, lap 147, Ryan Luza gets the job done, clears him, drops down to the double yellow line, and now leaves Zach Novak in control of the top with the 22 of Ryan Lowe. How about Ryan Lowe, by the way? That Farmer Chevrolet, haven't really talked all that much about the 22 tonight. Started back in 33rd, right in this thing. Outside, though, needs some momentum as we squeeze them 3 wide again. A lot of lap traffic these guys are having to get around, though, doing a very good job of having those guys stay high and let them by.
Yeah, they've got a really clear and open track right now. The lap cars are coming out of 4 and going through the tri-oval, and it's only a couple of them, so they shouldn't have to worry about them right now. But for Ryan Michaeluza, he's back up front. He's exactly where he wants to be. Every single time that he has been in the back, he's clawed his way right up front, and yeah, pretty much all 6 of these cars, we had the 10 cars, but they really sorted themselves out, really fell back a lot quicker than I figured they would. As like you blinked, 1 lap they were all together, and the next that they were just gone. But for Luza, he's got it in control. He's got it where he wants it to be. And you know what? I think Robbie Vrabel, well, we get into that section that we were this last stint, where everyone was pretty content with each other. Zach Novak, though, a little worrying. He's a little far back from Ryan Lowe, but he should still be in the draft.
Yeah, they still got the draft for the time being, but as we've talked about all night long, that last car in that group, you don't want to be that. Right now, he needs a little help from that 22, possibly a little bit of a brake drag will get him up there. It looks like he's got a decent run here through the front straightaway. It's going to allow him to close that gap nicely right there for the 5. So at least for the time being, Zach Novak able to keep in touch with these leaders right now. 6 cars. It was 7. That last run, we lost 1 of them. We've also lost the number 3 of Dylan Duvall, who was running 7th, now shown on the racetrack in that 10th spot. So unfortunate for that 3. But I'll tell you what, he did a good job staying up there. The problem is he had nobody that wanted to work with him. So he ended up getting freight trained, and that was the end of that there. And maybe if they get another caution, he might try it again, but we'll see what happens. He might get lost a lot quicker the next time here, but 6 cars now, 50 to go, Evan. We're getting down to that last quarter distance.
That's right, 3/4 distance that time by in the Daytona 500. 150 laps complete as of now, and just 50 laps to go. Very quickly now, after this race has been going on since we dropped the green flag a little over 2 hours and 13 minutes ago, it's going to start to speed up very quickly now. 40 and then 30, 20, 10 laps to go. You're going to be able to tell that these guys are starting to feel the end of this race coming through. And you know, I know that a lot of the guys have worked very hard to get to this point, to get this far in this race, and to be a part, especially that top 6 single file breakaway. They're not really going to care about conserving the race car come 20 laps to go. Everybody wants to obviously have a good run in this Daytona 500, the season opener for this 2017 NIS, but at the end of the day, I am very seldom to think that these guys, Cam, are worried about getting a good points race. And you know, somebody might, and that, I think, is the smarter decision, but I think if we're being honest, nobody wants to. As you see the race lead get swapped out again, the 2 went high, and the 26 kind of deked him out there, goes to the inside, and Vrabel going to go to the race lead. Nobody wants to drive around for 3 hours and come home 2nd or 3rd. They want to get the win in the iRacing Daytona 500, and even with 6 cars, I think that it is still going to be a wild finish at about 45 laps from now.
Well, this is why I'm a commentator and not a driver, but I would totally be happy with coming home in second or third at the iRacing Daytona 500. But that's just me.
I would too.
That's only me. But obviously, Evan, a higher tier of commentating driver than the rest of us. But yeah, for everybody else, though, I mean, for Luza, I mean, he ended up, I thought he was going to get freight train. He ended up getting saved by Blake Reynolds. So that number 11 car has been very involved today as far as the pushing. I don't really think Blake has led a lap. I'm sure at some point he's got to have led a lap so far here out of the 153 that we've had, now going on 154. But for Blake Reynolds, he has been a pusher for a lot of different people, and I think at some point you're going to start to wonder who is going to be bottling up with who. And I wouldn't be too surprised if in this stint we don't start seeing Andy people starting to practice their last couple of lap moves to see just how far they can make it.
Nah, because these guys still have another pit stop they're going to have to make as well too. So that pit stop could break them up into 2 groups of 3. I mean, you never know what's going to happen here, and a lot can happen. We've seen it already. A mistake by the 5 a couple cautions ago during a green flag pit stop. He came down, slid through his box, lost the draft, got saved by a caution. Now finds himself in this group battling for the win. But at the same time, you still got to have in the back of your mind, you can't make that mistake when you do have that pit stop. Hopefully for these guys, it's a green flag pit stop. It's clean. They can get it all done, but it's a lot of pressure on these guys, especially when you know that you're one of the 6 that are left in this group here fighting for this win. You don't want to be that guy that has that mistake and then find yourself really kicking yourself in the butt because of it and find yourself out of this thing.
The difference in speed is quite clear off for the restart. I said we had a 11 car lead pack. The top 6 have broken away from it, and just having that little bit less damage is quite evident because 7th on the back now, the guys who were able to hang with us on the restart. In fact, the driver who led us back to the Busch Racing restart and to maintain the race lead for a handful of laps off us at a restart is now 12 seconds behind. It's Alex Bergeron in 7th, Chris Shearburn in 8th, your pole sitter, Dylan Duval in 9th, and Patrick Mallet in 10th. They're now 12.4 seconds back off of the top spot, and if this race went green to the end, they might not even wrap this thing up on the lead lap. But again, talking about coming down to the end of this race, nearly at 40 laps to go, still don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Not enough fuel on board any of these cars to make it to the end quite yet.
No, and if they did end their race with fuel still in the tank, that would be because they wrecked somewhere. But we're not going to see that, though, hopefully. I think that they are done with that for today. I really hope. And hopefully they're all listening right now so they can hear me say that firmly and sternly. But just looking through, you've got Robbie Rabble. He's been. I figured that little bit of front end damage he was carrying on his Chevy would really hinder him, but it's really not. As that number 26 seems to be doing a good job. Taylor Hurst still in pursuit. Luza, I think he's calmed down a little bit. I think we had a couple of good moments, a couple of decent wiggles. And I think that that everybody in this group is calming down, is just settling down. I mean, I constantly see Zach Novak. He trips up, but I think he's just trying to cool down that number 5's engine. But we're keeping that group. And then you look back, yeah, we've got that second group, that Alex Bergeron, Chris Shearburn, Dylan Duval, and Patrick Mallet group. They are all running for position 7, 8, 9, 10. Basically, if we get another caution or something to that effect, I wouldn't be too surprised if some of these guys could be play an influential role, because every caution, that means more time for that pit crew to work on those cars.
That it does. It also puts the opportunity for those guys to maybe steal one away from these guys as well, too, as long as they can get that damage fixed that they have left and they can find that speed. We knew Dylan Duval had the speed when he had help, so he fell back, and now those guys find themselves in a line now, just trying to maintain what they can. At this point, stays green. They don't have a chance in this unless these 6 take each other out, but that would be quite interesting, but we got a long way for that to go here. All these guys making their way around some lap traffic now, the top 6 as they work their way back into turn number 3, and getting closer and closer to that 40 to go, and getting closer and closer, probably about 15, 20 laps before we're going to see these guys back on pit road as well, too, to make that final green flag pit stop before this thing is over.
Yeah, as of now, we're good on fuel to the end if somebody were to come down and pit. So we are in that fuel window. A couple of guys, and you know, you kind of run through all these different optional strategies, typically assuming there's 20-some-odd drivers. You got to figure somebody would come down and get fuel with 40 to go. Somebody would just split that 65-lap run in half, and somebody would run the 40 laps of gas they have out on board and come in at about maybe 30 or 25 laps to go. But there aren't all that many drivers, so I would expect that maybe everybody coming in at once, if not, 3 here and 3 there, keeping an eye on if anybody's really getting away from each other. I think these top 6 are pretty solid in line with each other as they run right now, but with 40 laps to go with that time by, this race continues to close in on the end of it. For those who are just tuning in, it's the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. We're happy to have you with us with our RaceSpotTV 40 to go. Tuning in to catch the end of this one, you have missed a lot up until this point. At the start of the night, we noted that there are over 650 drivers who started the iRacing Daytona 500 tonight, over 18 different splits, and if you're on the service and haven't had an opportunity to do so quite yet, there is one more running left this weekend. It'll be Sunday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time for this, the Open Series. There are several opportunities for the Fixed Series. 2 of them, for those on the East Coast, tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. and then at noon, and also Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern for the Fixed Series. So if you have not had an opportunity to hop on track and race in the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500, I highly encourage you to check that out and make sure you're a part of it.
Yeah, I'd say it's something that I'd be interested in doing, but unfortunately, I really just don't trust myself behind one of these cars, and I'd rather let it to the experts. But after all, just looking through where everybody is right now, there's really just those 2 groups. You do have kind of this one ragtag group of Braden Boulos and the number 20 car, the number 16 car of Jake Nichols and Tyler Laughlin. Tyler Laughlin, he's literally 42 laps down, so I would say that unless something awful happens, actually, we've got lead cars coming in down pit road. It is Ryan Michaeluza and Zach Novak coming into the pits.
Yeah, those drivers are already coming down to make their final pit stop here, and it looks like 4 tires for those drivers as well. A couple others is coming off the off as well, the 11. Coming off, and oh man, trouble right there. The 5 once again. Novak losing the draft. He's not going to have the draft as he comes off of pit road all by himself.
And I think that just comes down to lack of coordination, because he came down pit road with help. The help's out there, but he decided to go with 4 tires when he was down onto the pit lane. And Ryan Luza, who was coming off of pit road, decided to go with just 2 tires. He went with left sides only when he came down for service, and obviously you can't get 4 tires in the same amount of time that you go for 2, and curious how much of that was just a miscommunication, or if he, something as simple as forgot to uncheck taking 4 tires and cost him time, but that basically puts him all on his own and could be a mistake that costs him an opportunity at racing for this thing when it comes down to it.
Well, it could also, unless if something were to happen, a caution were to come out, he could take 2 in the future because his left side tires are going to be in good shape till the end, and so he could, in theory, take 2 tires and he would be running with that front pack. So perhaps that's something to keep in mind with, but of course, you've got to have that caution, and I'm just not sure that's what's going to happen so far. Just looking at the straight-up timing screen right now, your leader is, as it turns out, Alex Berggren, being pursued by Chris Shearburn, Dylan Duvall, and Patrick Mollett. But we know, of course, these guys do have to come in to pit lane and get their pit stop sorted out. That number 14 car currently getting just a couple of laps led, no problem there. But once that Ryan Michaeluza pack of 3 cars comes in, he'll be good to go. And where did the car of Zach Novak end out? Completely on an island. I was kind of hoping that there would be a lap car around Andy, but it's literally nothing.
Yeah, that's two mistakes. Pit road for the 5 of Zach Novak, and it's definitely going to cost him unless a caution comes out here in the next 10 or 15 laps for him. But yeah, things have definitely changed because of that pit stop. They had what was a 6-car draft, now down to basically 3. You got Ryan Lusa, Blake Reynolds, Ryan Lowe working together. You got to look a little further back, about 8 seconds or so, until you see Taylor Hurst and Robbie Vrabel working together, trying to get themselves up there to get back into this group as well, too, to see if they can try to catch this pack of 3 right now that's making their way down the back straightaway, and looking pretty good for the end of this one here. These 3 drivers, it might be up to them to decide who wins tonight's Daytona 500.
The guys currently up at the front of the field in the race lead have yet to come down pit road. Alex Bergeron, Chris Shearburn, Dylan Duval, Patrick Mallett. Those are the 4 guys, if you remember, who we were talking about 12 laps back. I don't see any reason why they don't try this, just to stay out as long as they possibly can on fuel, maybe hope to get a caution up front, and even though I don't think the guys behind them would necessarily come down pit road guaranteed, they'd have an opportunity to at least be back in this thing. So those guys are just going to stay out until those tanks are nearly dry, and then they will come down pit road and give this thing up. But again, the battle for what will become the race win is 5th, 6th, and 7th on the racetrack right now, down to just those 3 drivers, Lusa, Reynolds, and Lowe. Looks like Willow's kind of by himself right now in the 20 machine, working with the 16 of Jake Nichols, who is actually 12th in the first driver, 1 lap down. I believe that these guys will soon be caught, though, by Taylor Hurst, Robbie Vrabel Jr. in 9th and 10th. So might have a 3-way fight for what is currently 8th on racetrack. It might, is it going to eventually become for 4th? We'll see.
Now, we'll see. Indeed, a couple of more cars going in and out of pit, Ryan Ducat, he is trying to work his way. He ended up not being able to time that correctly. That's going to botch his time, as he was trying to merge once, twice, 3 times, but the traffic was just too much. Looking at Ryan Michael Lusa right now with Blake Reynolds and Ryan Lowe, they're basically just waiting to resume the lead, and then you've got of course, that group that we were just talking about, but just trying to figure out when you're going to come into the pits. I would probably take 4 tires, personally, but I don't necessarily know if that's what people plan on. I think that having 4 tires with, 30 to go is not a bad thing, but of course, once again, I'm up here in the commentary booth, but I could just be the crazy sensible one.
I won't go there. No, Alex Bergeron doing what he can right now to salvage a decent finish. I mean, these 4 drivers right now showing the race lead. They got a top 10 finish going for them no matter what happens from this point on. But right now, sitting there just basically running this thing dry and maybe possibly hoping for what could be a caution flag at some point here that could keep them up to the front and maybe keep them in contention before this thing is over at all. Ryan Lusa, that group of 3 trying to close the gap they have over the last few laps. It's down to about 10 seconds. So even with those guys staying out, these guys with the fresh tires able to make up some time here and definitely locked up pretty nicely with no damage on any one of those 3 cars. They're getting the job done. Back a little further still, that other group, the group of 2, we're trying to find some help with some of these lap down machines here. Taylor Hurst, Robbie Vrabel, number 8 and 26 right now, sitting 9th and 10th right now on the board. Those 2 drivers as well came down pit road together, but the problem is just 2 of them, not enough speed to keep up with the draft.
The driver that awaits to take over the number 2 position on the racetrack once the rest of these pit stops cycle through is Blake Reynolds. Right now, though, he's running in the number 6 spot. He's tucked up on the back bumper of Ryan Lusa, and he is just in front of Ryan Lowe in that battle between 3 cars. Let's go on board with that driver of the number 11 machine for a couple of laps around the Daytona International Speedway at 200 miles an hour. 173 laps complete from the Daytona International Speedway. We saw Blake Reynolds there, just calm, cool, and collective, guys, kind of feathering the throttle, staying in line behind the two. We were talking earlier about how critical the position of being second in line is as far as trying to hold off runs from the outside. No challenge, to say the least, coming for the guys on the outside, so there's no reason for Blake Reynolds to get all that close to the back bumper of the two. He's keeping a nice, comfortable distance. The 22 is doing the same off of his back bumper, and again, these guys still buying time. They have now gotten through, though, as we noted, that final trip down to the pit lane. They want it very much so to be decided between them and only them. So it's in their best interest to keep things clean for the next 20 laps. So we get to that go or go home moment at 5 laps to go, then they'll race it out.
Well, they absolutely will. And also, I'll say he's doing a wonderful job, Blake Reynolds, of covering the outside line right now. It's almost like it's non-existent. As I have to say, for Ryan Lowe, I mean, that would be a great run for himself. Started in 33rd, well, even Blake Reynolds, he started in 32nd. I mean, it's an improbable pair. And just if either of these guys come home with it, that would be a very impressive story. Not only for that, but due to the fact that, of course, how numerics are assigned here, for the most part, it should be all through iRating and where your iRating is. And so for both of these guys, you know, they're well outside the top 10 as far as the iRating goes. So they're looking to have a very, very good run here, as long as nothing happens to their cars that they can be extremely happy with.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Car numbers are based on these official races of what their iRating is, and it's all based 1 through 37 here in this race. Of course, Ryan Luza, one of the best that there is out there in the sim world, getting the job done here tonight in that number 2 machine, and doing a heck of a job right now as they continue this group of 3, closing that gap closer and closer to that lead 4 that are still out on the racetrack. It's going to be a little bit, I'm surprised they haven't come down to pit just yet, but they're obviously getting it done as much fuel as they have in these cars. They're trying to get as much as they can out of it before they do have to come down and make that final pit stop. But closing in, though, getting closer and closer, having about 20 to go. So it's going to get interesting to see these 3 battle it out. Of course, the speed will drop because they won't go drafting with each other, but it's going to be interesting who of those 2, the 11 or the 22, which one's going to make the first move to try to get around Ryan Luza for the win.
Yeah, I just took a look back to double check when the last time these guys were down pit road. It was 40 laps ago. This time by, they pitted at lap 137, took on fuel Alex Bergeron, who leads the pack at the moment. So that's 40 laps on gas. They went, what, maybe 41, 42 on the run in which we saw earlier on, when we had much more cars left in the field actually come down to the pit lane and get service for the one and only time up until that point. Into which we had a green flag pit stop. So these guys have to be expected to come down to the pit lane this time around. They've been out there for 41, 42, and 43 laps respectively. And just as we mentioned that, Kev, cue it up over the radio. Alex Bergeron expected to be coming down pit road this time by.
Now let's see how well they end up making their pit entry as that teal, black, and white car starts decelerating. He's taking a much less aggressive road in. Chris Shearburn, he's dived all the way to the inside. Oh, almost nipping the grass. That number 14 car loses quite a bit of speed. Chris Shearburn's now pulled alongside as Dylan Duval, he's letting that car pull into his stall. They're making a nice entry there. Chris Shearburn, I think, has had a much better pit lane right now. That number 19 slides into the stall. Of course, the first stall, he was the top qualifying right now. Alex Bergeron, he only takes outside, and he lights them up coming off the sides here, and he almost managed to, he will get past Chris Shearburn almost, and Dylan Duval does it well as well. So from what I thought was a good pit stop entry from Chris Shearburn has been botched, and now Alex Bergeron and Dylan Duval are up ahead.
Yeah, they are, and there's a little bit of separation between these drivers, too, as well. So not sure if a little communication is going to come over the radio or not, but right now the separation between these guys is not going to help the cause at all as far as getting back up to speed rather quickly. So the 5 cars, you see him trying to get around Shearburn. We talked about Zach Novak, the trouble he's had on pit road. Finds himself some 30 seconds behind the race leader, but trying to work right now with that 35 machine of Tyler Laughlin, who is 43 laps down, but has a new engine. They were able to put a new engine 30-something minutes He sat on pit road, but right now that car's got plenty of horsepower right now and trying to do everything he can to keep that 5 in position and actually give him a couple spots right there as he gets around Alex Bergeron and Dylan Duvall right there. So it moves Zach Nowak closer and closer to a top 5, which maybe be able to salvage. Maybe not. He's got a long way to go to get Taylor Hurst, Robbie Vrabel, some 28 seconds or so back from those guys. So top 3, they are the top 3, the 13-second gap, Evan. They worked their way off of turn number 2 and down the back straightaway and closing in with just under 20 laps to go.
You're going to be catching up on somebody in a second here, and I just wanted to note that I think it's the second time tonight that somebody got the pit road strategy via 2 empty soup cans tied together with some wire. You know the game of telephone gets passed along and somebody doesn't quite get the idea? The odd man out, unfortunately, that time through was Patrick Mallet. He didn't help himself out much by coming down to the pit lane a little bit hot. He overshot the box. The 37 backed it up. But he went with 4 tires. We saw that happen to somebody earlier on, and it cost them really to lose touch with the guys up front. Patrick Mallet was a part of that 4-car group that was, at the time, running 1 through 4 on the racetrack. He not only had that issue, but he decided to go with the 4 tires, either on accident or intentionally. It has taken him completely out of the battle with those guys. He's about 11 seconds behind them, running in 10th spot. And, well, you see Ryan lose as we take a look back up front and head off to quarter number 3. The 37 is right there. They're going to put him a lap down, and Mallet's going to drop to the first car 1 lap down position, still in 10th, leaving us with 9 drivers on the lead lap as the leaders go to the inside.
Ryan Michael Luza, he just hoped to sneak a little bit of draft on that, but I think that was more for entertainment than anything else. Blake Reynolds hovering right behind. Ryan Lowe is also right there, so not much lap traffic ahead past that, as everyone else just looking through for... You basically have this front group of these 3 cars, then you're looking back, and then you've got Taylor Hurst and Robbie Vrabel, and then you just continue just going back and back. It's... you have to go quite a ways, almost around the entire circuit, halfway around the circuit to really start finding the other cars, where Chris Shearburn, Dylan Duvall, Bergeron, and Novak are. And for Zach Novak, well, he's at least found a group now, Andy, that's in his group, but unfortunately it's 7th and 8th place.
Yeah, unfortunately, and at the same time as well, too, that's 2 positions that he might lose. So for Zach Novak, at least he's back up to speed. He's with those guys. The caution obviously would help those guys out tremendously, but for the race leaders, they don't want a caution. Those 3 drivers know at this point, no more pit stops. They're coming about to 15 to go in a couple of laps. They want to be where they're at right now, have an opportunity to win this. They don't have to worry about any other drivers except the other 2 that are around them. This is going to make for an interesting finish here. You got to wonder, is Luza in the prime position here, or would you rather be that guy in 2nd or 3rd?
Question is, do we see a move before quarter 4 on the last lap of the race? There's only 3 guys. If Blake Reynolds were to go to the outside, then basically Ryan Lowe determines who wins this race. If he gets on the back bumper of the 11, it's a good chance that guy's going to win the race. If he gets to the back bumper of the 2, it's a good chance that he's going to give him the win. Or they go 3 wide like we saw in the NASCAR PK Free Series preseason shootout a couple of days ago here on iRacingLive, and make it an exciting finish nonetheless. Ryan Luza is going to make that number 2 machine wide. Tonight is an extended practice session as he gets set to make his NASCAR PK Free Series debut next Tuesday right here on RaceSpotTV at iRacingLive. He would love to get a win in the Daytona 500 on iRacing. Is in a fantastic position. I still like being Blake Reynolds at the moment. And again, to kind of Cam's point, there's a reason that we're up here talking. It is because I cannot drive. And it would not be pretty if you sent me out in a race car. Anybody who watched the Bragging Rights Invitational would know that that is a very true statement. But to that point, in my opinion, I'd rather be the 11. Some guys like to be the guy who has to make a defensive move, and they want to be leading. I just feel like, in my opinion, I'd much rather be the guy in control of my own destiny, having to make a move to go for the win. I would hate being at the disposal of what somebody else does. So we'll see, but Reynolds looks like he has no intentions of giving away P2. He's not looking high right now. He doesn't want to try to go for the race lead with 13 to go, give up P2 to the 22. I think that he likes where he's at.
I'd say I'd like to be riding on that the number 22 car, that Ryan Lowe car. Being in third place, you're on the aggressor. Your laps are ticking down. You're trying to formulate your own plan. Now, of course, all three of these drivers have probably 5 or 6 different ideas of how this whole race is going to end out. Especially just looking for perhaps traffic coming down or anything like that. So if I was that number 22 car, I'd be pretty interested in figuring out what I want to do. These cars are all starting to give each other wiggles. I think they're getting antsy, Andy, and it wouldn't surprise me if these guys don't start kicking off something, at least just doing practices right now. They're just wiggling at each other. That is playing a dangerous game, but I'd like to be that number 3, that position 3 car, just because I like the challenge. I'd like to try to figure out how to probe the defense and how to try to get past here. It's basically a duel at 200 miles an hour.
Well, if you're Ryan Lowe, I think you're hoping that those two wreck each other out and you drive right on through and don't have to contend for anything for the win. Yeah, that definitely would be the easiest. So definitely being Ryan Luce at this point. I mean, listen, as well as a iRacing driver, simulated driver you can get, Ryan Luce is that guy. You know, in his mind, he knows what he's doing. Obviously, you get to a point, though, he's got to figure out, basically he's got to play that blocking game, and that's what it is. And if he can make the right moves at the right time to block those guys and kill the momentum, especially on that final lap, it's going to give him the advantage going down to that start-finish line. But you got a long way to go till that happens. There's still 12 laps, making 11 and a half as they work their way down the back straightaway, and it looks like playing some games, like you said, with these guys, but at the same time, you got to figure out that the fuel's starting to go away, too. These guys have been on pit road. It's been a while, so they definitely over halfway through this fuel run, so cars are getting looser a little bit anyway. Tire wear is getting down. They did only get a 2-tire stop, too, for most of these guys, so you got to figure that and go into it as well.
A little bit of fun they were having with each other down the back straightaway, I think, interestingly enough, kind of shows you the tension between these guys, because they know that next time by, there are just 10 laps to go in the iRacing Daytona 500, and they're kind of aware. They're saying, I know what you're up to. The 2 is very much informed, and he knows that the 11 is staying on the bumper because he's going to put a move on him. I don't think Ryan Luce has any expectation that Blake Reynolds is going to let him sit there, and they're just kind of sitting there waiting. They've been waiting for 190 laps as of this time by to get to this point. I think we might have to wait just about 7 or 8 more until we see what move is going to take to win the Daytona 500.
Well, and what move indeed? It's almost starting to get to the point where you've got Clint Eastwood and the rest of the cast, of the good, the bad, the ugly. You're trying to stand around in that circle, and everyone's just, they're politely wiggling their cars. They're just nagging and seeing what they want to do. But you can tell that all 3 of these drivers are definitely trying to figure out what they want to do, and it's pretty well hidden. It doesn't even look like it unless you're looking from the angle that I'm looking at here, just how they're slowly drifting their way around the track, and they're defending each other, actually. Luce's made probably 4 different maneuvers, even though it looks like they're all just wiggling, that has stifled Blake Reynolds. So that while they are joking around like this, they are having actually very, very serious, very tense moments here. But we'll see what happens here. It wouldn't surprise me if that number 11 doesn't at some point dip his Ford Fusion into the inside off of the exit of 2, and that, to me, would be a move that would loosen up Ryan Luce, and that's, perhaps a decent maneuver. I haven't seen it today, so I have no idea if it would work. I would figure I would have seen it at some point, Andy, but I don't know how you line this up with 8 laps to go.
Well, I want to know who you figured out, who's the good guy, who's the bad one, and who's the ugly one, because I think
intentionally did not point that out.
Because whoever you think's the ugly one, I think they might take offense to that here, but we'll see who ends up in victory lane here tonight. Closing in on this one here, 8 laps left for these drivers to get it done, and Ryan Luce is still trying to figure out which way these guys are going to go. You protect the bottom, you know they can't go down there. You know they're going to make the move to the high side. You got to figure out when they're going to make their run. These other 2 guys, they're right now trying to figure out, okay, where can I get the best run? Is it off of turn 2? Do I wait till off of turn 4? This start-finish line, Evan, as we know, comparing from Daytona to Talladega. The start-finish line comes awfully pretty quick here at Daytona off of turn number 4. There's not a lot of time to get the job done.
You have to get to that side-by-side spot almost still in corner number 4, and it's extremely difficult to do that by yourself, which is why, again, that 22 could be a big role in this if he decides to go with either the 2 or the 11, or if he wants to try to make it a 3-wide battle in his own right. 6 laps to go the next time by. They continue to sit and wait to see who's going to make a move. The track not necessarily clear in front of them. They're going to have to get around James Curl. That's one driver by himself. I don't think that's going to be a factor. There is a larger group of lap traffic coming out of quarter number 4 now, as they are in the center. I don't think are going to catch them, but if they did, it would definitely be interesting to the end of this thing, as now 194 laps are complete.
And once again, they're just rolling right on through the start-finish line, now going into corner number 1. And, well, Ryan Lowe, it looks like the last 2 laps now, I've been trying to figure out what his idea might be. He seems to have a very good entry into corner number 1 with that speed, and he scrubs it off. He's getting closer and closer to the rear of Blake Reynolds. And Blake, every single time they come off of 2, he's got the speed. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see if Ryan Luza is able to correctly predict which direction to vie and which way and which angle to go. A couple of cars have been going on and off pit lane. Shouldn't it be too bad of an issue? I don't believe that they're going to be catching that pack of cars. There's 4 laps to go here in the iRacing Daytona 500, and they're only running about a second apart, so it should just be a straight up duel as Ryan Lowe possibly go to the outside. Yep, he is starting to make his move.
Interesting to make a move this time. I think this is what it is setting it up here as they drop back down single file. You saw Luza go immediately to the top side. What that'll do is actually help the 22 come up, but it's going to kill the momentum of the 11. So that's exactly what Ryan Luza did. He knows what he's doing, and that's what's interesting to watch him out front and to see if he can hold these 2 guys off in these closing laps. It's going to be fun to watch. Definitely something we're not going to want to miss in this one in the final 4 laps.
We're inside of that point-to-no return that we had alluded to. If a caution were to come out now, this race is done. It is not going to go back under green flag conditions. And there are battles going on right now. 4th and 5th up for grabs. 6th, 7th, and 8th and fighting for each other. So something might happen back there. Cut these guys short. All we know is that the next time by, 197 laps going to be complete. There will be 3 laps to go. How long do you wait if you're Blake Reynolds? Are you going to go on the last lap? Are you going to go on 2 to go? Because it's a fair point to say that you don't want to go too early, make the pass, but then give that guy an opportunity to come back at you, try to get it back.
Well, they're going to corner number 1 once again. This is just for the second to last time. Now the penultimate as Blake Reynolds. Will he make his maneuver? Ryan Lowe, here he comes. I believe he's looking to push. Who is he going to push? It's going to be Blake Reynolds, of course. Okay, they're going to stay in line. So make that anticlimactic. They had the speed to do it. They had the speed to make the maneuvers, but they're going to wait, and they're going to sit on it. And we'll see, as actually there's 3 to go. I lied. No, wait, there is 2 to go. All right, I can count, I can do math, but either way, we'll see here what Ryan Michael Luza does as we look to the finish here at the iRacing Daytona 500.
Yeah, just 2 laps remain for these drivers. 5 miles, that's it. All this comes down to a 500-mile race. It comes down to the final 5 miles between 3 drivers. Ryan Luza has been pretty much the class in the field all night long. He's been up at that top spot, leading the most laps out of anybody. You got the 11 of Blake Reynolds and the 22 of Ryan Lowe. Both of those drivers starting 32nd and 33rd on the grid. Here they are with an opportunity to get themselves a win. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a fun one now as they look to the outside. The 22 drops back in the line. You see these 2 guys actually dropping back a little bit off of Ryan Luza. How much is he watching out of that back mirror right now as they go for the move on the front stretch?
Luza going to shut the door. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go in the iRacing Daytona 500. It looked like they were going for it that time. but the number 2 was having none of it, and now Blake Reynolds and Ryan Lowe, they're going to have to set something back up. To the bumper they go, in the center of 1 and 2. The 2's got to keep an eye to make sure he doesn't leave the bottom open. The 22 to the inside on the 11. They both look high, they both look low, they can't get around Luza. He'll shut the door 4 or 5 times down the back, and he is going to hold the double yellow line to the center of quarters number 3 and 4. Final time for Ryan Luza, trying to hold off Blake Reynolds. The 11 close, but he is not close enough. Your 2017 iRacing Daytona 500 champion is Ryan Luza.
Well, that was a adept maneuvering down the backstretch, and that paid off. Ryan Luza, he comes away with it. Ryan Lowe, not much he had for it. Blake Reynolds, he was such an individual that maneuvered through the race. He really worked his way through, pushed a lot of different people, just coming up just a little bit short. .054 at the start-finish line.
Yeah, great job by those guys. Taylor Hurst, 4th, 5th for Robbie Vrabel. And the battle for that 6th spot still going on the front stretch as they come to the checkered flag this time. And Zach Novak's going to hang on to that one here. A great job for him. A good recovery after a couple mistakes on pit road. He'll end up with a 6th place finish here tonight. So a fantastic job by all these guys and a great piece of driving. I'll tell you what, I don't think Ryan Luza looked out that front windshield that whole final lap.
I think that what the 11 did was he tried to go for it at the white flag. He had that big run, the 2 shut the door, and all those attempts on the last lap really weren't set up. They backed off in 3 and 4, coming to take 1 to go, and after that didn't work. They looked flustered, and Ryan Luza, he was waiting for it. They knew it was coming. They sat there and just kind of stared each other down for 30 laps, and in the end, it was Ryan Luza who ended up being in the better position, and that number 2 Ford is going to celebrate on the front straightaway as your champion in the iRacing Daytona 500. Blake Reynolds, Ryan Lowe come home 2-3. Taylor Hurst, Robbie Vrabel Jr. through the top 5. And do want to give a call to Zach Novak, Dylan Duval, and Alex Bergeron, who come home inside of the top 8 and on the lead lap. This is exactly where the 2 wants to be next Tuesday. And I bet you all of those drivers who he's going to be racing with that weren't in the field tonight were watching that finish there, and they know that Ryan Luza is coming, and he means business in that series and opener. Let's take a look top to bottom, though, at tonight's full results for the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. Already ran you through the guys who come home on the lead lap. It's Ryan Luza, Blake Reynolds, Ryan Lowe, Taylor Hurst, and Robbie Vrabel Jr. at the top 5, with Zach Novak, Dylan Duval, and Alex Bergeron on the lead lap. 2 drivers 1 lap down are able to sneak into the top 10 tonight. Your biggest mover close to being, I think he was short by 1 spot, getting those honors. Patrick Mallet goes 37th to 9th tonight, and our pole sitter Chris Shearburn comes home in 10th.
Finishing in the 11th position, the number 20 car of Braden Bools, Jake Nichols, Aaron Likens, James Curl, Ryan Dushat, he's in 15th, Christian Chalmier, Tyler Laughlin, well, he was out on track all day long, but he was still 43 laps down. He had to replace an engine. Nicholas Morris, 18th, Garrett Lowe, 19th, and Dylan C. Jones finishing in 20th position, 57 laps down.
21st tonight was Justin Bolton. Colton Davis will finish 22nd. 23rd goes to Brian Blackford. Brandon Pipgriss will finish 24th. 25th goes to Jacob Harberts. Chad Lawton will finish 26th. 27th goes to David Washington. 28th to David Rattler. John Gorlinski will finish 29th. And 30th tonight, Bruno Barbugli.
The rest of these drivers come home over 140 laps down. It was a rough showing for them, and they're going to try to get their money's worth in the final Daytona 500 coming up on Sunday morning for them. But 31st position for Parker Steele. Jimmy Mullis comes home 32nd. Adam Benefield, Chris Overland, and Cody Bias through 35th, with Malik Ray in 36th and Logan Clampett in 37th. That's a look at your RaceSpotTV full race results from the Daytona International Speedway. We'll take this quick opportunity, step aside, and we will be right back to the World Center of Racing in just a moment. You've been watching the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500 on RaceSpotTV post-race when we come back. Welcome back to the Daytona International Speedway, where Ryan Luza is our 2017 iRacing Daytona 500 champion. Side by side across the start-finish line. At the end of it, got it by 54 one-thousandths of a second over Blake Reynolds, P2. Ryan Lowe came home in third, just a tenth of a second back. Those were the only three left. We knew it was coming. The 11 and the 22 made a couple of runs at it in those final about 3 miles of the race, but they were not able to get the job done. And Ryan Luza gets the win tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. Cam, it was definitely an interesting race. Some big wrecks early that tend to be what you expect. Nonetheless, when you come to a plate track race and you've got a 37 some odd car field, took a lot of the guys out of this and made the second half very interesting with that lesser car count, and it all came down to the end there. Ryan Luza, though, he knew that the move was coming and he was expecting it. He was able to hold him off.
Absolutely, and big wreck on lap 37, and then it was another big wreck on, I believe it was lap 103, or somewhere around there. But anyways, yeah, so once the field started whittling away, that outside line went away, it just turned into a straight-up duel on the inside line, and then we just whittled that on down to 3. Once that got down to 3, I mean, it wasn't easy for Ryan Michaeluza. That's I don't want to imply that, but he did seem to not have to worry about that outside line. That obviously is a very good thing, especially when you're at a plate track like this. But for him, Blake Reynolds and Ryan Lowe, I mean, that's a good day, I have to say.
Yeah, and at the end of it, I'm sure that, it would have been, a little bit more of an exciting finish if there were a lot of cars left in this race. But the guys who were there at the end played the strategy right. They were up there in the thick of things early, while still managing to keep those cars at one piece, and therefore, those are the 3 guys that deserved, I think, to be a part of the fight at the end.
No, you're absolutely right. Up there for the majority of the race. Of course, Ryan Luza leading the most laps here tonight. Was definitely in the right spot for pretty much all of the race, up towards the front of the field, able to not be anywhere remotely close to what happened behind him. So for him to be up there, get this opportunity to get a win, not only that, but to have the opportunity for at least the top 5. A pretty good deal for Ryan Luza. And we talked about this race being basically a precursor to what we were going to see on Tuesday night. The only person really you could say that got an idea of what his setup's going to be like is Ryan Luza. For the rest of the pro drivers, they have to wait for that next attempt here. They got that one more race for the open setup to fine tune their setups before they get going on Tuesday night.
One of the drivers who has to be feeling pretty good about that race upcoming is your race winner tonight for the Daytona International Speedway. Ryan Luza gets the job done tonight, and I'll go trackside and chat with the driver of the number 2 machine, who is our 2017 iRacing Daytona 500 champion. Ryan, congratulations, man. There were only 3 guys left at the end of this thing, but you guys are able to get the job done. Blake tried to get you there a couple of times, and the last lap wasn't able to. And you take this thing home after 3 hours of racing. How's it feel?
Feels pretty good. It was kind of I don't want to say boring race, but I wish it could have been a little more exciting. But with most of the field gone, there wasn't much we could do. And with us having that 6-car pack, we had 3 teammates, me, Lowe, and Reynolds. So we just came up with a plan to try to get away on the pit stop and work together, and it worked pretty much perfectly.
And then we saw you guys kind of wiggling there inside of 10 to go, because I think that everybody was aware that you were waiting until the end to make the move. Did you have an idea, of what that 11 was going to go for, and how were you kind of prepping to make sure to defend that?
Just watching the rearview mirror, that's really all you could do. I figured he would go on the back stretch. Just got lucky on the blocks, really. I should have protected the bottom a little more, I think. But I really didn't want them to be able to hook up together, because I would have let them just push right past me. So, it worked perfectly, and really the main reason I did this race was just to practice for Tuesday. I've never been a super speedway guy, so just a lot of valuable experience.
I know that one thing that, you've mentioned before is that, Daytona plate tracks are always very difficult to prep for. You ran twice as many laps tonight as you're going to have to on Tuesday. I know that, that race probably isn't going to end with 3 guys and have half of it be run with just 12 drivers on the lead lap. But with this being the open split of the iRacing Daytona 500, what were you able to gain from tonight? And are you feeling a lot better now than you were maybe 3 hours ago, looking forward to that race coming up?
I think we're feeling a little better. really a lot of it comes down to qualifying, and I was just able to stay up front really all race. So hopefully we qualify well. It depends a lot on the wind gust here at Super Speedway. So hopefully we get some good fortune, qualify top 10 and just, really just miss the wreck. So that's all I can ask for. And, we have a good car, obviously. So thanks to everybody who's done that.
You guys win the big one for this year, per se, as we had the cameras here tonight. There's still a couple of other races coming up before the weekend is done. Are you guys going to be participating in those? Do you think that you guys kind of got everything hammered out tonight?
I think that's going to be it. I'm not too big of a fan. It's a little repetitive maybe, but this was a lot of fun being able to work with the teammates and just preparing that way. But 3 hours, I'd rather just mentally prepare for the race on Tuesday and work on qualifying trim.
It has been a long night for you guys, and somewhat strenuous as well, because you were up there and ran the whole 2 hours and 50 some odd minutes, whatever it was. So we'll let you take off. I do want to give you the chance, Ryan, before we let you go. The sponsors, the shout-outs, let them say hi.
Going to be a long list today, so I want to thank everybody who worked on the set. So all the guys at Dead Zone and SimWorks, Houston Hammer, Alan Bowes, Dustin Lingert, Blake Reynolds. So huge thanks to them. I haven't been a part of it this week just because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I also want to give a big shout out to the sponsors that are coming on board. Tuesday for Peak. Racer Boost Graphic Solutions is the primary sponsor. I'm really bummed I didn't get the scheme on the stream, but that'll be a good reveal on Tuesday. So thanks to Racer Boost. Go give them a like on Facebook. They do great websites, hero cards for a lot of the professional racers on iRacing. So that's good. Thanks to the Drill Spill for coming on board and Fast Track Sims. They make really good motion rigs. It's crazy. Full motion rigs, just everything custom built, and a bunch of triple monitor stands. I'm probably going to be getting me some of those. So thanks to them.
It is your race winner tonight in the Daytona 500, Ryan Luza. Ryan, congratulations. I know tonight was a little bit of an exhibition for you, if you will. Tuesday's the main show. We look forward to seeing you then. Good luck.
Thanks, Evan. It was a lot less stressful than it's going to be for sure.
It'll be fun coming up in just those 4 days' time from tonight. So Ryan Luza feeling pretty good as I think you can going into a race like that. He gets the win in the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500, coming home second behind him and shy by just those 5/100ths of a second was Blake Reynolds, who's trackside with Cam.
The number 11 Ford Fusion, proudly having the purple and white on it, ends up coming across second across the line. Started in 32nd, so you dropped off 30 positions from the line. Why don't we take a look at the first stint and how that ended and how that affected the rest of your race, Blake? Because you were making your way through, and then that massive accident happened.
Yeah, just kind of cruising the back there with Ryan Lowe and a couple other guys just working in the back. And then that huge kind of crash, I got a little bit of damage in the rear end, but we were able to kind of get through there all clean and then kind of work our way up through there.
And you're pretty well. You're tied for, I think, the biggest mover between you and Ryan Lowe, and it was ended up the three of you at the very end. Just through the last probably 20 laps, it was just ticking everything down. But once you started getting the last 5 laps, I mean, what was it really just, were you trying to come up with a master stroke of a plan, or were you just trying to see if you could find a crack in the armor for Luza?
Well, we were just cruising there at the end. I was kind of planning on doing it with 2 to go, ended up doing it on the white flag, but I went to go to the outside there, he put the blocks, and then I just kind of weaved around there. And I just couldn't get the suck on him, as DW says,
Well, either way, though, still going from 32nd to second is a very good day, especially when you avoid not just one but 2 big ones. But overall, just a fairly straightforward race for you guys. Obviously, I wish there was a lot more cars involved, but just looking forward, we've got a lot more action here with the NASCAR Cup cars here at Daytona. But it's a decent day when you get to do runs like this. But obviously, we all, I think, wish that we had a bit more cars towards the end.
Yeah, it would have been more fun, a bit more of a factor there, but Yeah, that awesome strategy, taking 2 tires there at the end, it got the 3 of us just separated from the rest of the pack. It was kind of let us able to, I guess, maneuver our own race.
Well, either way, just congratulations on coming home in second position. Before we let you go, is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to or give thanks to?
Well, I'd like to thank everyone at Dead Zone Racing for making a really awesome set that I'm sure we'll get to use later on this week, actually next week at in the PK Antifreeze Series race. And then I got to thank Ryan Luza and Ryan Lowe for working with me at the end there. It was really fun, just kind of cruise around. And then I guess sponsors for the car, not many, but I got to thank John Dragonetti for letting DragonTech.com on the car, and Ian Plash for letting us use his name on the car, and again, everyone at Dead Zone Racing.
It's Blake Reynolds, driver of the number 11 Ford Fusion, comes home in second position. We'll see you on Tuesday, and have a good one then. And I'm sure, perhaps, maybe we could even have another conversation then.
All right, thanks, Cam.
And Evan, we will kick it back to you.
That's a chat with your second place finisher, Blake Reynolds. And by the way, those 3 guys very familiar with each other. They're all working together in a way kind of funny that they had to duke it out amongst themselves. The one final driver who was a part of that fight, Mr. Ryan Lowe, comes home third, and Andy Kessler is with him.
Yeah, I'm down here on pit lane here with the driver in the number 22. Ryan, congratulations. First off, a third place finish here. Long race, 200 laps, 500 miles. You tired yet, or you ready to go for some more?
Honestly, I could go for a lot more right now. I always, at the end of these races, I get more energized, so I could do another 200.
Yeah, it's always fun when you actually get to the end and finish it. Obviously, big carnage, a couple big accidents early in this race. You decided to not qualify, starting the back. Pretty much the strategy you were looking for. Dodge those first couple wrecks and then find yourself with a chance towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to see what it would be like for Peak 2, and a lot of the Peak guys weren't there, so if it worked here, I'm hoping it'll work on Tuesday, just starting from the back.
Well, it's definitely a good strategy. Another one's qualifying up to the front, just like your teammate did. Ryan Luza qualified up front, able to stay there all night. And then when it came down to it at the end, you found the 3 of you a good strategy call on pit road. 2 tires that separated you guys from the rest of that 6-car pack that you had. And you guys were able to duke it out amongst yourselves. And how much of that, I'm sure you guys were communicating over the last 40 laps or so. And was there any talk of strategy or who was going to help who, or were you going to gang up on anybody, or was it just kind of a free-for-all on the last lap?
I mean, it was mainly a free-for-all. I was going to try to help Reynolds, but down the back he ended up weeble-wobbling all over the place, so I couldn't really get up to his bumper. I just kind of watched him duke it out for the win. But, I mean, the third place is really good still.
Oh, absolutely. After a long 500-mile race, to come home third, to dodge those wrecks, have a pretty clean car when it's all said and done. It's got to be pretty exciting, especially seeing this is basically a precursor of what we're going to see come Tuesday night in the season opener. And you guys got to be pretty excited, I think, as far as sets. You guys know you got a pretty good set underneath you. You came out here. You guys all ran up towards the front of the field, too, as well. Able to draft well. The pit stops were good. No mistakes. You got to be pretty confident heading to Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, usually I'm the one to make mistakes on pit road, and I had it perfect. So that was my only concern coming in, and after I clarified that, it's a lot better.
Oh, it definitely is. Well, third place here tonight in the 500. A long night, but you can go for a few more laps here, and you get another chance if you really wanted to head out and do this one more time here on Sunday. So congratulations again, but we'll give you this opportunity, Ryan. Sponsor shout-outs. You know how to do it.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Dragon Tech for all the paint schemes and just sponsoring me this year, and Houston for being up top in the box and making the sets for me.
There you have it. Ryan Lowe finishes third here tonight at the Daytona 500. A good run for him, and we'll send it down back to Evan.
Yeah, I believe we're going to catch up with another driver who came home inside of the top 5 tonight. I think we're trackside with the driver of the number 26 machine, Robbie Vrabel Jr., who started way back in 34th position, but walks away with the top 5 finish after 500 miles. Robbie, congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
So that last battle there, the one that we were watching, was with Loser, Reynolds, and Lowe, those guys inside of the top 3. You in that 26, when it came down to it. wasn't a part of that battle in particular. But the car made it. You're one of only 8 guys who was able to make it on the lead lap with that late race restart just having to be what I think actually ended up being the longest green flag stretch of the night. Through green flag pit stops and all the way to the end, you guys just weren't able to keep up with those guys?
They got us on strategy, without a doubt. They were much smarter. We didn't think 2 tires would make it on handling, to be honest with you. We were debating it, and we just thought it would be easier to just go with 4. We thought they were going to go with 4 too. We thought it would have just been the give and call, and they surprised us when they took 2. We were already on pit road getting 4 when we found out they took 2, and we knew right away that we were in trouble. But we tried our best, man. We survived. We did everything that we needed to do, which was great. So to come away with a top 5 on my first ever Daytona 500 and being able to work with my teammate Taylor, it's always a blast working with him these tracks. So I'm real happy for the both of us to get the finish that we got. Feel bad for Adam and Jimmy. They got wrecked early in that big one. I got pretty lucky missing that one. I got pretty lucky missing the second big wreck too. I thought that was probably the coolest moment of my race, was missing those wrecks. So without that, I don't get this finish, man. So I'll take that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that because, interestingly enough, in a race that had a lot of, I guess 2 large accidents, you would expect there to be, obviously, guys from the back that are able to make it through, but you look at the top 10, only 3 people who finished inside of the top 10 actually started in the top 10, and then you had yourself, who started 34th, and then Ryan, who started 33rd, and Blake, who started 32nd, coming home 5th, 3rd, and 2nd, respectively. So a lot of you guys came from way back there. With all the carnage that we did see tonight, really in the opening half of this race, avoiding those accidents, was there any strategy behind it? Were you guys kind of hanging it back early, trying to stay out of that? Or was it just one of those things where the car was in the right spot at the right time and, it just meant to be tonight?
A little bit of both, to be honest with you. My original plan was to start in the back and ride. You don't get finishes like this if you don't survive. So that was the main goal to start. We just want to survive and at least get to lap 185. I felt that was the number. If we could survive to there, we would have a good chance. But, like I said, those 3 guys, they pulled out a great strategy. So congratulations to them. And the wrecks were a lot of luck. That first one, I came to a complete stop on the apron. I saw about 20 guys in front of me all destroyed. And that second one there, I was on the yellow line and I saw somebody get loose. I think it was Duval, and I went straight for the wall. And I got lucky to get around that. So a lot of luck and a little bit of planning, to be honest with you.
I know that it's been a long night, and we'll let you take off, Robbie. Before we do, give you an opportunity as everybody, the sponsors and the shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you guys?
Absolutely. Everybody at Air Precision Chassis Works, One Up Motorsports. Very happy to be working with them again for the peak side of things. I want to thank iAnalyze Racing for coming on board for the pro season. It wasn't the showing that I wanted for them especially, but nonetheless, I got to give them a shout out for their great sponsorship. GameVox Gaming Servers, A10 Hawaiian Ice, Brad Newman Photography, and you guys for putting this broadcast on, man. It's real cool, so thank you guys.
Hey, I also want to thank you for hanging out and talking with us, Robbie. Congratulations once again. Best of luck going forward. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
It is the driver who comes home P5 in the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500, Robbie Vrabel Jr. I believe we've got one more driver left to chat with, and I believe trackside with Cam Walsh he will be the driver who ended up coming home in 18th position. Tonight we'll see if we've got Nick Morse with us.
Nick Morse, and there's also Zach Novak, I think, as well. But either way, we'll talk to Nicholas Morse first. Nick, it's a bit more of a different story. We've been talking with people and how they ended up coming across and finishing. Your day, not so well.
Yeah, I got to thank New Car Inventory and everyone at the Fastlane Motor Group for their work this week. I think we showed this car had speed. I qualified 4th. I could move the car anywhere I wanted. It was extremely loose, but I was just trying to wait for that first pit stop, and I got a chance to look at the replay. It looks like Chris got loose up there, and that happens. It's Daytona, so pretty frustrating. I thought I was going to maybe squeak out a top 10, and then I got net coded with like 70 laps to go. So 18th is not bad, when you keep it in perspective for Daytona, but definitely not the finish I was looking for.
No, you're obviously, the car is all sorts of torn up, but you know what, as you said, 18th, not too bad. Obviously starting in 4th, well, like you wish you could have had a lot better, but you know what? It could always have been a lot worse. Well, I mean, once at that point, it's a bit difficult, isn't it, to try and keep the car going and keep it out there, especially when you're damaged like that. Was it fairly straightforward getting all the faster, letting all the faster leaders through cleanly?
Yeah, we weren't that far off either. I was easily to hang with Alex and Chris and Dylan, so I still had top 8 speed. Obviously not winning speed anymore, but yeah, just tried to be aware of where I was at, not really make any issues, and the server was great all night. And I know what iRacing does is extremely difficult to send all that data back and forth. It just went through a weird 10-lap patch there, if you guys remember, from 100 to 110, where everyone was jumping around, and right at that time I got hot, so I pulled out of line, and then Alex got to the outside of me, and we were there was a car length between us, and it sent me down into, I think, David Rattler. So just a weird thing, but yeah, happy with how well the team worked. Not happy with the result, but 18's better than nothing.
Well, that it is. And is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to? Anyone that works behind that 28 car helping you do what you do?
Yeah, I actually picked up 30 iRating somehow after finishing 18th, so I want to thank the zero-sum iRating system that iRacing has. I want to thank Michael Smith, David Siltman, Jonathan Dickerts, and everyone over at the Fast Lane Motor Group. We've been extremely fast, had some really big wins lately, and I was hoping to start the year off right with this, but oh well, we'll go get them next week at Atlanta.
Nicholas Morris, thank you very much for hopping in the RaceSpotTV booth. We wish you the very best, and probably talk to you at some point later in the season.
All right, thanks, guys.
That's Nicholas Morris, the driver, the number 28. So, all right, we'll hand it back over to you, Evan. I believe we have Zach Novak.
Yeah, he comes home in 6th position tonight, so a little bit out of order, but we are going to have the driver of the number 5 with us, and I believe down in his stall with him is Andy Kessler.
Yeah, I am down here on pit road with driver the number 5, Zach Novak. Zach, long race. A lot of things can happen. Saw a couple of mistakes on pit road. You find yourself out of the draft. You got saved by a caution at one point, but then coming up here on that last final stop, it just hit probably at the worst time for you.
Yeah, the first time on pit road, that was just a driver mistake. I overshot the box, and then when I went to back up, I didn't back up enough, and then it was just a whole mess. And luckily that yellow came out for us. But then on the second stall, that was just, I didn't have any communication with anybody. I knew the Dead Zone guys were going to go in, Dead Zone and Simworks guys were going to go in with each other, so I tried to follow them in, and I suspected a possibility of taking only lefts or rights, whatever they did, but I ended up going with 4, and that was definitely the wrong call. But luckily, we still hung on for 6th and managed a decent finish.
Yeah, you were able to find some drafting partners there too towards the end there to at least keep you up to speed, and then go down a lap. Ended up on the lead lap here at the end of this thing, but after 500 miles, I mean, 6th place, even with the mistakes, you got to be pretty happy with the result.
Oh yeah, I'm happy, and tonight we also came in qualified 3rd, so that's looking good going into Tuesday, and Will Cooley qualified 1st in the 2nd split as well, so our Q set's looking good for Tuesday, so that's a big plus, and we also have a pretty good race set going into Tuesday as well, so this race was a good practice race, and we got to get some much needed drafting help on top of this past Tuesday in the shootout.
So you got a Tuesday shootout in the bag. You got tonight's race in the bag. You got one more shot at the Open in the 500. You going to give that another shot, or you pretty much just think you guys are all set and don't want to fine tune anything before Tuesday?
I may give it a shot. It's very slim chances, though. I think we've qualified well all week, and that's really the main goal into Tuesday is just to qualify well. So I think if we just bring this car, maybe get it a little bit better into Q, then I think we can make the race, and we have a pretty good race set from what it showed tonight. So I think we'll compete if we can make the race on Tuesday.
Well, the pressure's on. Obviously, the qualifying it's a big deal when it comes down to you guys that have to qualify to get in. so much work is put into that, and maybe a little less effort maybe on the race setup, just because you got to get into the race. How much is that knowing going into these races? How difficult is that for you guys as you move forward?
It's very difficult because, in the Pro Series, I made many mistakes and I had many bad finishes, which is the reason I'm having to qualify into these races in the first place. So that's a little annoying, but I'm accepting the challenge, and I understand that it's not going to be easy, but every race is a different task to complete, I guess.
Definitely is, and I guess in a way, I make it more rewarding. You guys make every single race from here on out, and get the qualified setups where you want them. So there is a benefit to it, I guess, and it depends on the way you look at it.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be rewarding to make the races and just give a little bit of confidence going in if we do.
Absolutely will. Well, Zach, we give you a wish you the best of luck here coming up on Tuesday. Hopefully we see you in the race. And with that said, though, sponsor shout-outs, we give you that opportunity here tonight.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody at Zero Gravity Racing for building the great Q set, like I said, and they also worked hard on the race set as well. We have a very good package going into Daytona. I'm confident about that. And also, I want to thank Infinite Creative Solutions for coming on board this year. They'll be a primary sponsor for most of the races this season. Also, Devin O'Connell Racing and Wilkinson Enterprises for coming on the car as well. And I also want to thank Junction Auto Parts for coming on the car this year for the Peak Series.
Sounds good. Well, Zach, like I said, wish you the best of luck. A good run here tonight, and look forward to seeing you guys get it done on Tuesday night.
Thank you, man. Good job on the broadcast, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, there you have it. Sixth place here tonight for the number 5, Zach Novak, Evan. And I think overall, for like a lot of these guys had mentioned, this is what they came into this race for, was to get the seat time, to practice these setups that these guys have been working on for weeks now here, getting in preparation for Tuesday's race.
Yeah, we noted at the top of the show that a lot of the names that we're going to be talking about tonight are names that you'll recognize from those top levels of the iRacing service, and a lot of people are talking about Tuesday, Cam. What is it, 3 now? I guess it's Saturday on the East Coast, so 3 days until we get that underway. I know that everybody's really getting excited.
Well, absolutely. Of course, 9 o'clock Eastern. I, for one, am super excited to start my second full-time season in the Peak Antifreeze Series as the commentator team. So hopefully, you're a little bit more familiar, a little bit more comfortable. Hopefully that'll work out a bit more. But really happy to be a part of the team once again, and hopefully we'll have a good run here at Daytona. Maybe this time we've had our Ray Alfala's race. We had a couple of big ones. Here we've had a couple of big ones. Maybe we've gotten all of the big ones out of the way, and we can just have a grand old race for 100 laps at Daytona.
That basically wraps things up tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this with us and tuning in with us for our coverage of the 2017 iRacing Daytona 500. None of this possible without giving a big thanks to the team behind the scenes at RaceSpotTV. Obviously, everybody who shows up week in and week out at iRacingLive to cover all the series with us. Also want to give a call to East Van Ballo for helping out with the cameras at aptionerd.in with the new CG and the broadcast graphic features. On behalf of the RaceSpotTV team for tonight, for Andy Kessler, Cam Walsh, myself, Evan Pasoko, and our director, Hugo Louise, congratulations to Ryan Luza, who is your 2017 iRacing Daytona 500 champion. If you still want to get into the action, there is one more Open 500 left this weekend. It is Sunday at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. If you're racing in that, we wish you the best of luck. We hope that you enjoy that. We also hope that you enjoy the Great American Race this Sunday. As for us, we will see you this Tuesday for the season opener of the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing, right back here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Coverage of that kicks off at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then.